Summit, are you about ready? Hello, check, 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 check. Summit, are you there? Are you there, Summit? He does not appear as if he can hear me. Yo, Summit, he's typing something to somebody. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Wave your hand if you can hear me, Summit. Nope, no hand waving. Summit, are you listening? Are you listening? Summit, are you listening? So, Summit, are you listening? Are you listening, Summit? Summit is like, that's a tough name to live up to. No
It's also a very cool name, though.
Oh, yeah, cool
I
shit.
mean, like, super. I'm like,
I can tell he's
oh.
gonna be super cool. I'm already annoyed.
Like if
Why does it have cool people on? Dang it.
Okay.
Summit, can you hear us yet? Hey, Summit, are you there? Wave your cane in the air and shake your fist at the clouds if you can hear me. Summit, can you hear me? No. Can you?
You can't see or hear anything.
Can you hear me now, Summit?
I see you. I can't hear anything.
You can't hear me? No? I can hear you. You can't hear me.
I can't hear you guys.
Okay. One second.
So he can't hear us.
Nope, he cannot hear us.
Nothing.
Okay, but you can hear him.
We can hear
We
him.
can hear him.
Is it like possibly muted on like whatever this is on the earpiece?
Possible.
Anything's possible.
Let me try to leave and come back in.
Is he going through
He wants to know if he should leave and come back in. Yeah?
No, he's fine to stay.
No, just stay. One second.
But I can hear you guys with the microphone.
Microphone check 1 2 1 2. Are we just doing one today?
No, two.
Huh?
Two.
Two? Who's after him?
Me.
Weirdest, I can,
Mariah's gonna swap and be the co-host.
Oh, cool,
Yeah.
fun.
if you want, or you guys can just
We'll just look at the time.
say it.
Yep. Default microphone. Check, check. So we are experiencing microphone difficulties.
How about now?
How about now? Can you hear us now? Nope. Nothing.
I heard you really well just a little bit ago before we went
Yeah.
off and came back on.
Yeah, before we
He
went
said he
off
heard us.
and-
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, he said he heard us really well earlier before we kind of messed with things, and then it disappeared.
Doobie doobie doo. Imagine being married and living with me, and then you have offspring that have a similar. So we gonna do the like pull my finger and then public.
Okay, is the AirPods working? Are they?
AirPods, yeah. They can hear the guests. It must be an issue
Oh,
with the H6, but the H6 was selected.
Okay.
And I can hear them.
Microphone fans only.
Can you go to the, not the default for the H6?
Check,
We
check,
wanna
check.
turn off the, can we pause the live stream and go back to the,
Yep.
video?
All right, 1 second.
Cause
Summit.
it's dead air.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Will be a new link.
I was just trying to see if we could.
or let an expert file for you. Intuit Turbo.
No? Check.
I hear you now.
Oh, yeah, we're good. He can hear us. He can see us. Success.
Now we just need our camera. If it's not one thing, it's the other.
Can
No,
you see it, man?
it's not a problem. We're just getting it turned on.
Check, check, check. Hello, hello.
Yep, I hear you.
Cool. They're checking the audio
Hooray.
levels over there. I don't think he can see us yet.
He can see us.
I cannot see you guys yet.
Oh, you can't?
cannot see
Oh.
us.
Now I can. I see half of you.
Hey.
Boom, there we go.
What's up, dude?
What's going on?
How are you?
Success.
I'm good.
Thank
Finally,
you
we
for your
got
patience.
it rolling. I think it could have been on my end. I disconnected, reconnected everything, and now we're hearing good, so we're good to go.
Nice. Okay, let me make sure we got streaming going. Cool. All right. Poor Clubhouse people are just going to listen to me yap. Like I said, Clubhouse people, you want to offend me. I posted a link on my social media and Bulu's. If you actually want to watch the show and hear people, go for it. And yeah, I'm just going to leave this on. I don't know why. I feel like juicing my battery. Okay, how do you want to, you had a kind of idea of how you wanted to kick it off?
No, I
All
don't.
right, well, thank you for joining us. We are on live stream on multiple things, on and off, so I just warn people, like, just assume you're being recorded and, all 7 people that we're streaming to see you. So we'll do the intro and all of that later. Excuse me, let me make sure I'm ready here. And we'll just do a quick little hi, how are you, and then we're just gonna pester you with questions. Don't worry, the producers and everything will make you sound good for the actual podcast. I can't help you on the live stream.
No worries, no worries.
All right, you ready, Mrs. Jarrett?
Let's do this.
Are we ready, gang? Yang gang? All right. Summit, thank you so much for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Summit Hogue from Grow Network, the CEO, and I believe founder, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. All right. Stephanie, do you want to kick it off with a question, or you got me all nervous because you're like, I want to do it this way. I'm like, I don't do well with rules.
I'm very particular. I'm not Summit. Well, I thought we'd just let Summit. So first off, Summit, we haven't officially met prior to this. So this is going to be a lot of new conversations, so it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
can you tell us how we got connected, and then just tell us about yourself and about Grow Network to get things started?
Yeah, so I was on LinkedIn, just searching around like I always do. I live on LinkedIn, but
Hunting.
yeah, oh yeah, that's definitely the hunting grounds. But
It is a good source right now.
yeah, so I found you guys on there, and I just thought, man, Bulu is really cool. So you posted something about the podcast, and then somebody actually tagged me in the podcast and said, hey, you should check this out. So yeah, so that's how we got connected. But
And the next thing you know, you're on it.
I know, and then next thing I know, I'm staring at myself on this screen, talking to you guys, and we're
That's like how
we're
our
rocking and
company
rolling.
Yeah, that's like how our company operates. We got like some innovation lead at BuzzFeed on, and then it's like, people in our company that are like, I want to be on, and then it's like, let's get Gary Vaynerchuk. But I like that. I've done a few podcasts, and I like just letting the show like breathe and figure out who it is itself. The first episode. So like when I heard this, I was like, hell yeah, bring him on. That'll be fun. So. But yeah, continue. So how was the actual, besides LinkedIn, I think you spoke with Jake, is that correct?
I spoke with Jake for a little bit, and then I spoke with Mariah the rest of the time, kind of getting everything going. But yeah, so I'm basically really where I saw the synergy in us jumping on here and just talking is, what we do goes hand in hand in a number of different ways. But I'm primarily a commercial real estate broker, and I just represent third-party logistics companies and fulfillment companies across the United States managing their real estate. But with that, I kind of got I started realizing that I can use that network to help a lot of companies out there that are searching for these guys. So because what happens is a lot of these folks get out there, they get on Google and they just look for 3PL Atlanta or 3PL Dallas. And then they just start calling the first ones that pop up. Well, the ones that pop up have the deep pockets, right? The ones that pop up are the massive 4PLs that went out and raised millions and millions of dollars, or they're the really big 3PLs. And if you're moving 2,000 orders a month, man, you're gonna get. They'll take you. Sometimes they'll take you, and when they do, you just get lost in the sauce. And next thing you know, you're having to move, and they're not fulfilling orders when they're supposed to, and you just. So what I built was a network of 3PLs around the country that are like, some of them are regionally based, some of them have warehouses, in different markets, but they're all primarily like family-owned type operations, or the CEO, the owner is like very involved, and he treats every customer like the same, right? So it's been really, really cool because I've got to work with a lot of these brands that have been like, man, I went with the Chipmunks of the world, and I could never get anybody on the phone, and when I did, or they forgot about me, right? I'm too small for them. So anyway, that's really what I built now, and it works really, really well because representing these guys on their real estate, I know how their leases are structured. I know what's going on in their buildings. I know who has space, who's about to take more space. So when I'm talking to a shipper and they say, hey, we're looking for a fulfillment company that's got East and West Coast, somebody that's, not too big, but not, too small, that can handle, 10, 20,000 orders a month, something like that. But that also has the technology to grow with us, and they're investing in that, and they want to grow rather than just, a guy that still using paper, right? Paper, you know what I mean? So
true.
Anyway, so that network has been really, really valuable for a lot of shippers out there. And a lot of those guys happen to be subscription box companies that are, calling us, and we're helping them find the right 3PL partner. Yep.
So, can you still hear us?
I can hear you. Okay, now you're back. I got you.
There we go. So what brought you into this, what were you doing before, and like, how did you identify the opportunity, right? If you could kind of describe that leading up to it. I think my hunch is, as we get more target audience information and we see who's listening, we're guessing that it's probably going to be a lot of subscription owner founder types or people in innovation. And I think that's always the curiosity of, invention versus innovation versus, you work somewhere else on opportunities. So if you could talk about that for a minute, I think that'd be really interesting to people.
Yeah. So, man, if you know anything about commercial real estate, so commercial real estate brokerage, it looks like a great business. It looks like, hey, the people that do that are doing really well. Well, the barrier to entry to get into commercial real estate is astronomical. So what I mean by that is nobody's going to pay you a salary to get into commercial real estate. It's you get your real estate license, and it's, hey man, come on in. The traditional way to do this is here's your geographical market. You're going to go door to door to door, walking in and just trying to talk to business owners and get them to hire you to manage their real estate. And
love it.
I'm going, okay, so I walk in, I got my real estate license. I'm all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I'm 22 years old, like all excited. And they give me this desk, a phone, a computer, and a market. And they just said, all right, bud, take off. And I'm like, what do you mean take off? Nobody's going to teach me what I'm supposed to. Yeah. I was just like, what am I? So what happened was I spent a year going door to door to door to door to door in this industrial market in Dallas. It's called the Great Southwest Submarket in Grand Prairie, which is a lot of buildings out there, a lot of 3PLs out there. And what ultimately ended up happening is I just kept getting my teeth kicked in every day when I'd walk in. These guys, you know, they slam the door in your face. They tell you to pound sand. They tell you, we got a broker, used them for 30 years. And I just kept running into just brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. And so I had to go back to the drawing board. I'm like, all right, there's got to be a better way to do this. And everybody in this industry is older. They're older and they all do it the same way. So how could I do it different and change the game a little bit? So what it came down to was, you know, I'm going to chase an industry rather than chase a market. So I'm going to let all these real estate brokers out there chase their geographical markets, right? And then I'm going to go chase an industry, and I'm going to work in that industry, and I'm going to be the very best one. When you think in that industry, real estate broker, you got to think Summit Hogue, because he's the very best one in that space, right? So I narrowed down what industry is that going to be. Well, I want to do a lot of business with the same folks, and what that came down to was 3PLs and fulfillment companies. They want to grow. They want to take more space. They want to go into that next market. They want to keep growing their footprint. So then I sat back and I go, well, what is that guy chasing? What does he want? Well, he wants leads. He wants opportunities. He wants to fill his building. So that's when it really sparked, right? And then I'm like, okay, so if I can get companies that are looking for a 3PL, introduce them to these 3PLs, one, they'll take my meeting if I don't know them yet. Two, they'll take my call later if I've brought them something like that. And man, it just snowballed from there and turned into me. Basically, in the beginning, I was working with just calling companies off of QVC, because that was the only place I knew to start, right? I know they're shipping things, and so I'm just calling these people that are selling 100,000 units on QVC and telling them, hey, I know your margins are terrible. You want to sell this on your own website and get your own fulfillment company. Bam. So I started introducing that guy to 3PLs, and then next thing you know, I've got three guys that are like three different 3PLs that I've sitting down with their CEOs, when prior they wouldn't even let me walk in the front door. And then so it really expanded from there. And then I was at that company for about three or 4 years, and great guys, you know, love that real estate firm, but it was truly just it was a blocking and tackling traditional real estate firm, and I was going a whole nother direction. So I decided, hey, I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go start my own company, because I'm going to let this ship sail here, and I'm going to go. Let's rock and roll. So
that's awesome. You wanted like a career, not a job, right?
Amen.
Whether it's your own thing or something with people. So if you could sum it up in one line, you know, like it would be Summit Hogue. Like, what do you want? You know, you said I want people to remember my name in the industry. Like, have you figured out kind of like what you're saying to try to make that stick with people? So when I talk to 3PLs, I basically just say, look, in a nutshell, here's how it works. I am going to fill your building. I'm going to go to work every day chasing. I have a whole team. I have a team of people that are chasing leads now, right? That are going out and digging up shippers. And I'm going to bring those deals to you. I'm going to try to get you a seat at the table of every shipper that I think fits what you're looking for, and fill your building. And then I'm going to manage your real estate around the country. So when you tell me, hey, I want to get a building in Atlanta, then I fly out to Atlanta and we go look at buildings. And I represent you in leasing that space. And you know, to be the best one in an industry, you got to really know their business model, know why they want it, how they want it structured. You know, a lot of these 3PLs say, well, I want to take 100,000 feet, but I really want 500,000 feet. So can you help me get 100 where I can grow into the building? Well, so a lot of what I do is going into these markets and finding these landlords that will actually get creative with us and let us move into 100,000 feet. We're not going to put a demising wall up, because I call it the gray haze effect. And I basically sell the landlord on, listen, you want this 3PL owner to walk out and see to the other end of that building. He's only leasing 100,000 right now, but if you if you don't build that wall and you give us an expansion option where we can grow bay by bay by bay,
then he can go to all his customers and say, hey, I'm in 100,000 feet, but I have access to 500,000 feet.
Right.
And then you never know what kind of contracts they can land that way, right? So you kind of open them up with that flexibility. And then the landlord's like, well, I really want to throw up a wall so that way I can move somebody in faster. So you got to kind of battle the landlords on that. They're not really that easy to deal with on some of that stuff. But in a lot of cases, man, exactly. So So in a nutshell, in commercial real estate, you have tenant representation brokers, and then you have landlord brokers, right? Well, a lot of people represent both sides. So a lot like the CBRE and JLL and Cushman, they represent landlords, tenants, whatever. I don't represent any landlords in the country. So my goal is to say, hey, I'm only going to represent third-party logistics companies and fulfillment companies as a tenant representation broker managing their real estate across the country. So they know for a fact that they've got the best guy that knows their business, knows what they're looking for, knows how to structure their leases, and that they can call at midnight because they got an email from a potential customer that they're going to be dropping 80 truckloads the next day, that he can help me solve that problem, right? You'd be surprised, man. I can't even tell you some of the things that.
I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, like 5 container ships that were dropped in the ocean. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Drop them out.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell how it works. It's 2 companies. One is Grow Network, which is where the guys are out trying to dig up opportunities and find companies that are looking for 3PLs. And even on that side, I say, look, I'm not asking for exclusivity. I'm not saying you have to choose from the 3PLs I bring you, because you're not paying. They don't pay me a dime. And the situation is basically, you're going to give me the data of what you're looking for and exactly how many orders you're moving and the amount of skids you're bringing in and whatever else. And I'm going to take that out and go find the best 3PLs that I think fit. And they're my suggestions. You can entertain them, talk to them. If you pick one, great. If you don't pick one, no sweat. You're not ever going to pay me $1. So to the shipper, they're like, well, then there's no risk for me to take your suggestions. So it's it's a major win for them.
So you'll do both real estate and you'll bring like fulfillment work. Is that what I heard you say?
Right. So that's how it all works.
You're going to bring us all the subscription box fulfillment. Is that why you're
seriously? Yeah. I mean, that was another thing we talked about was, you guys are running your own, operation where you're managing subscription box companies. When I get subscription box companies, you're definitely going to be one of the folks that I call immediately.
Hey, yeah, and I got 2. As soon as you said like I'm looking for like creative landlords, I was like, oh, Monty and Clay for sure, because they're 2 people that we work with, and they're one's the largest property owner in Nebraska, and I think the other one's the largest in Lincoln commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And shout out to Monty. I feel like I'm doing a Fralick shout out every show. Lisa's his wife, who I'm sure is just as much of a running the company as he is. He's also my kid's godfather, but he kind of got me into the whole like startup thing. I blame him. They were one of our early investors, but he was so great to work with. And some of the questions I think back to like when we asked him stuff, it's like embarrassing to think, what we asked or whatever. And then as we grew, we needed some bigger space. We're in about 100,000 square feet, actually right down the block. We should stop by on the way home. That was with Speedway. So U.S. Property is Monty, and then Clay is at Speedway. And for I think 6 years, I met with Clay, and I said, here's what I think we're going to do this year. Here's what I believe we need. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then finally, like year 6, I was like, man, I've been here every year. I've delivered every year on what I said I was going to do. I feel like I'm just going to keep doing this, knowing that I'm never going to work with you, but like, what the hell, And and I was just literally on a whiteboard adding up like, here's where we pay our office rent, here's where we pay this rent, here's where we pay warehouse, there's all these different line items, and they're going to totally different people, the payments are. And I was just simply like circling that number going like, why don't you just take this and knock off like 10% or, whatever. And, God bless him, he did. And it's been a really good relationship. And especially in the pandemic, man, I mean, we were just like, this is what we can do for this amount of time. Do you want to work together or whatever? And they were super cool. So both U.S. Property and Speedway and it have been awesome. And quite frankly, that's a big, when we're working with, the Disneys of the world or Clorox or whoever, that's a big concern is like, hey, how are you going to scale? And then when you can kind of say like, I text my kid's godfather and my best friend, and you know, or whatever, or you know, I got somebody like Summit representing me, like I got somebody that's going to handle that. Like just having a solid answer for that usually makes that question go away. But if you don't have a solid answer for that, that sticks. You know,
Yeah.
like if somebody says, hey, I'm going to, you know, we want to work with you. We got 1 million shipments, you know, what's your address? Okay, they pull it up on Google Maps. They're like, ooh, like, how are you guys going to handle this if whatever? And you're like, well, let me get back to you. Like, you're toast, right? You need to be able to say, this is exactly what I'm going to do. Here's the time frame on that. Here's the rough cost. I got to go verify, you know, it's current and correct. And then that question goes away, and it doesn't really show up until, you know, due diligence or the operations people need to do their homework or whatever. And I think one thing that I've learned, and I would, you know, love to hear kind of, you know, what you've seen on it. And I should go back and say, but I never really knew this category. It doesn't surprise me, but it's just like what you do wasn't something that I thought to Google ever. You know what I mean? And, and I think founders, a lot of them, you get really good at like search it. You're like, I got this problem, and I tell people I'm just really good at Google searches. You know, I'm really good at finding where I need to go.
They really should teach like a high school class and like how
Everybody
to Google appropriately.
should take
It's a life
Google,
skill that's pretty essential these days.
Everybody should take a Google power searching Boolean class and keep a little visual chart of like how to search, like if this then that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like a totally different internet, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, our process consisted of me basically hunting, and the best deals that I ever got were, you know, some guys laying concrete and it looks like it might be a warehouse, and you know, just wander up to some 80-year-old dude and he's like, yeah, like I'm building it, I do most of the work myself, and you know, we don't know what we're going to do with it, and you're like, I'll take it. You know, the other way, it's just a lot of like walking in, knocking on the door, and I think people underestimate the amount of people where, you know, you just talk to the owner, they're like, dude, we'll get rid of this lease in a minute. We've been trying to get out from under it. And that is so time consuming, and it's crucial. So one of the things that surprised me was, because we do basically consumer packaged goods, and we don't have like, you know, really truly like barrels of chemicals or heavy machinery, we were like kind of like sought after, you know, because it's like, oh, we can have these people in here and they can leave and they didn't, you know, destroy the place, make the ground toxic. So I'm curious if like you run into that, or like how you kind of maneuver that and find out, because it seems like a lot of warehouses do have that issue of, oh, we can't take that because the ground's toxic, or maybe that's a Nebraska thing. But is that something that you experience in kind of what you do every day?
Yeah, so definitely in markets like Nebraska, where there's a lot of agricultural stuff that happens up there too. So a lot of the chemicals are like, you know, trying to come through in barrels and whatever else. But I mean, in a lot of the major markets, to be honest, sometimes 3PLs kind of get the when I say, hey, we're just an e-commerce fulfillment company, sometimes they're excited, sometimes they're not. And the reason they would be not is a lot of times the 3PLs come in and they say, hey, I want a 1-year deal, or I want a 2-year deal, because when you're in LA, man, like that market is just crazy. The landlords out there are buying up neighborhoods and scraping homes and building.
Everybody's crazy in LA, man.
I know, sheesh. Well, so what happens is those landlords are going, hey, I know that I could get Nestle to come along and lease this 500,000-foot building for 10 years. So why would I take a shot why would I lease it to your guys for, you know, 1 or 2 years? So basically the minimum in LA that you're going to find, unless it's a sublease, is going to be, you know, 5-year deal. And that's just the reality out there. So but a lot of times in other markets like Dallas, I mean, you can get real creative in Dallas and Kansas City and some of these different markets where you can get shorter term deals. But as far as usage of the space, I mean, most landlords are fired up to get a 3PL use, because they know it's going to need small office. It's going to need, it's going to need a lot of restrooms, but it's going to need a fairly small office, and then it's going to be easy on the building. It's just coming in and going out real smooth. They're not manufacturing, nothing's chemicals, it's just an easy use on my space. So they do like it from that perspective.
Yeah. So when companies come to you, because you mentioned that you will also connect companies looking for a 3PL, with
Mhm.
your network of 3PLs that you work with. I'm curious, when they come to you, do they come to you looking for recommendations, or are they coming to you thinking they might be interested in, functioning as like a 2PL themselves, and like, can you help me find warehouse space? I want to do this myself, and you're kind of like, are you sure? Talk me through what they're looking
Yeah.
for when they initially reach out to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've done it a couple of different ways where, like, I've got one in Kansas City right now that basically they're running their own operation right now in a small warehouse, but they're saying, hey, we want to consider flipping to a 3PL because we're growing, and so that we can scale, can you help me get some folks to evaluate, but then also can you send me some buildings that I could move in and just continue running my operation myself? So we just kind of help them evaluate that whole scenario. And there was a subscription box company here in Dallas. It's called the Sportsman Box. Guy named Adam Whitehead, awesome company. I think it's brilliant. And we sat there and evaluated different 3PLs over and over and over, and then we evaluated leasing a building. And man, he's just a very operational mind, and decided, hey, I want to do this myself. So the numbers don't quite add up for me. So we leased him a building, and now he's running his own operation, fulfilling all of his own orders, and managing his own boxes. So it's been a couple of different ways, but I would say 90% of the people that we're working with, we're going after them rather than them just calling us. And that's due to our web presence and I'm just wearing a lot of hats right now. So sitting there and building out the website and SEO and spending, ad spend and all that stuff. Because here's the thing, I'm competing with ShipBob and those guys for the space on Google, right? Yep. Like I love ShipBob. I mean, I work with those guys, but as far as ad space on Google for somebody to find me first, it's just you're paying $40 a click for a warehouse, Dallas or whatever, and I'm like, man, I can't. Yeah. I just don't want to spend that kind of money on that. So most of the stuff that we do, the team here is picking up the phone and cold calling and direct messaging on LinkedIn and going after brands and just saying, listen, here's what we do. We're letting you know about it. Check out our website, and we can definitely help you. It's no cost, take it or leave it. And we're getting a lot of good responses from guys going, where were you 3 months ago when I was going through this whole process with all these 3PLs? I had no idea what I was looking at. And, and go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, it's fun. And I love the aha moment whenever I talk to a shipper and explain what we do, and they go, wow, because what we're doing is saving them an astronomical amount of time, because they're getting on Google and they're calling these people. And sometimes 3PLs are notorious for telling you they can do something that maybe they can't, or that they are. And they'll tell you, we can absolutely handle that. Yes, we've got the space for that. Yes, we can do that. But then when it really comes down to it, they were basically hanging up from that phone call, calling their real estate broker saying, you got to give me another building in 7 days. Like, they're fortunate to have me because I can do that. And I've done that a couple times. But in other cases that, when they're, they overpromise and underdeliver sometimes. And
it's enough that it's like, I feel like 3PLs do that enough where it's like a hurdle we have to get over. Yeah. And I don't think people think we're serious when we say like 9 out of 10 calls we turn away. I'm like, shit, I turned away 3 this morning because I can just ask a couple of questions, or my buddy texts me or whatever, and people are blown away. I'm like, we walked on Walmart and Adidas because it just didn't fit within what we were going to be great at. And I just have a firm belief that if you, at a certain phase in your company, like if you don't do that, especially in the subscription box world, my God, like it's a small world in the subscription box world, right? Mm-hmm. And you hear that happening with some over-promising and under-delivering. So I had to stop them on that because it just, I can feel my gut. I was a nose guard in college, so I see a deep ass.
I love it.
Instantly my gut is like, churning when I think about us, like, why do we have to overcome, like, sorry, everybody else lied to you here, we'll just tell you.
Yep. Yeah. And that's one thing we see a lot of is, guys are starting to specialize in the 3PL space, which is getting really cool. So I'm starting to see guys say, hey, I don't want it if it's this, or this. I only want this specific thing because I know that I'm going to be the very best at this.
Yep.
And then so we've got a network of those guys too. So so somebody calls me and says they want a subscription box. I mean, I've got 4 or 5 guys that I know are really, really good. They have a lot of subscription boxes and they care for it. The quality's there. That box shows up to that customer's doorstep and it's packed perfectly. And they open it in that element of surprise and it's there and they're excited about it because that is such a key component to the success of a subscription box company. So.
Yeah, it's really about, presenting that as a gift and not just a standard old package, from Amazon or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Do you mind if I do some market research? You can ask a question.
I do have a question,
I got like a
and then we'll get to the
market
market
question for you.
Okay.
So when companies come to you and they're looking for a 3PL recommendation, what kind of questions should they be asking you, or what kind of questions do you ask of them to help them find the right fit? What like key things do they need to check off?
Yeah, so I some of the main things I ask when I talk to a subscription box company is, well, clearly is order volume. How much kitting is there? Like, are we really coming in here and building every box need to be diligently built perfectly with the sparkle, fluffy stuff and everything presented like that, or is it truly like I've got one right now that's basically like, no, it's a STEM box for kids, and it just comes and it's got a little science project in every one of them, but it doesn't have to be, it's more so about what they're getting rather than how it's presented. So in that case, I can take that guy to these type 3PLs, and because he's not looking for high quality, expensive operation. He's looking for a simple operation. But then the people that tell me that they're really looking for, like, when this box gets opened, that gift, that feeling that they get when they're so excited to see the presentation. If it's like that, we're going to some specific guys as well. So those are some pretty deep details of just how intricate is this operation, and that's going to tell me which direction we need to go. But then obviously, what's your order volume? Is it your own packaging? Where's the packaging come from?
Right.
Some of those details, and then what's your store built on? Are you Shopify? Some of those things. But those are some of the major points.
Yeah, great.
It's weird hearing somebody that knows so much about what you do when for the past decades, what you're just the little, I can tell you're good at what you do because of the nuance and some of the things that you're saying. And it's very rare when I go, oh shit, they know the subscription boxing is truly, because usually it's somebody had an idea, they're just completely agreeing on, starting a company, or a lot of times it's like, hey, my company does this one thing, or we're B2B and we want to start a direct-to-consumer brand, or we have some leftover shit, we make money off of this, or it's a lot of times like a 3PL that, they did direct to retail pallets, and they're like, oh, we can do this thing over here that's growing. And so I can't help myself but, ask you some questions about our strategy, because I'm curious to your feedback, and I think that's super valuable for listeners. I despise when people come off as they know everything, right? It's they're on these podcasts and they're on the shows, and you're just like, bullshit. Technology and everything changes so fast. And I didn't look at marketing software for 2 years, and then I just, in the pandemic, popped it open and started looking, and I was like, holy shit, the amount of just AI and integrations and automations in 2 years is absolutely mind-boggling, what has happened, So when you hear these people that are they did something and, it's 5-6 years later, they're still talking about it, you're just like, bullshit, you don't know what's going on. So I'm just not the guy that's afraid to ask in front of the room, or, I always make people just, I think, cringe when there's a room full of people using jargon, and I'm like, what is that acronym? You gotta tell me. So I just, and it's this show to me is for entrepreneurs, is for people that want to launch a business. It's for probably starting off for subscription box people. And so here's my question. So I should preface by saying, we have a lot of work coming in, but we are at that stage of like, should we take that or not, right? And so we are all about that like hyper focus, like get really great at one thing. So our company started, we had our own Bulu box. It grew to like 40 to 60,000 shipments per month. It was basically Birchbox but for vitamins and supplements.
Yep.
We then built the software. We sold that. Bulu box was almost acquired a few times, and then we just went, man, this customer acquisition cost is like going nuts. Like we're not going to be able to keep up with that. What do we do? Well, we went out to big brands and we said, hey, we'll build you boxes. We know how to build the forecast. We know how to do everything. Is this something you're interested in? And I tell people, once the CFO understands subscription revenue, it's a go. So you're just fighting like hell to get in front of the CFO. And so we were doing that, and we had like, that's really when our company turned the corner. That was about 4 years ago. And we're doing full programs. We're literally picking up the phone to Disney, and they're like, "Yep, we want 3." And they're like, "Whoa, shit!" So it's working. Companies doubling, tripling. Pandemic hits. I think what a lot of people don't. They assume like, "Oh, your e-commerce, you're doing good." Well, the reality is that one of our like tricks up the sleeve, where we were making sure the brands we worked with were selling in retail or advertising. So like we have all these store locations that are promoting a subscription box. And that's really how we're getting up to 0 to millions in like a year or two for these companies. So that goes away, right?
Yep.
After we collectively shit our pants, not to mention the whole kind of marketing strategy of like send Paul to keynote some event or whatever, connect, get the list, go back, shoot content specifically to those people. We had it down, right? So we go out to the market and we just do the like pick up the phone. Here's the things that we do. What's your headache? It's just this constant like, well, what's your headache? What's your headache? And we definitely found that something that we were already doing, which was you could just do strictly like subscription fulfillment for a box or whatever. So it was something that we were already doing, and so now we're sitting in this position where we have all these large brands contacting us that want to do boxes, but we're like, like you don't have certain elements which were successful pre-pandemic versus now. And we're changing our messaging, and we're really approaching, these SMBs that are shipping anywhere from, 500 to 10,000 per month, or, maybe they're shipping like 100,000. Still pretty broad. We don't want people that aren't doing anything, or it's an idea, but we don't, we're okay with people that ship, 1 million a month. But I feel like we really understand what we need and the timing and how long it takes. I mean, we really did like an audit of what the data says. Is like, we didn't choose this market. The data clearly was like, you dummy, go after this segment. And so now as we're here, what we're running into is a lot of people are like surprised we're talking to them because we shot them down for like 4 years because they're like, we're like, yeah, we work with Disney, we don't work with whatever. So now we're, part of this podcast, right? And we're trying to get the message out of like, this is what we do, and I think Shipmonk is doing a great job, and ShipBob, and I say all the important things I should, but you go, oh shit, what happens when you're like a Shipmonk but better, right? Like what happens when you can compete on those people, but like you got to get the word out. If you were in our shoes, and I think we're doing all the right things, the like SEO, the email marketing, all of that stuff, right? But I'm always kind of like, where is the source? Is it like the sales reps, people like you? Is it the cardboard reps? Like, who can I use as like catalyst to go like, well, you're sending out an RFP, you got to send one to Bulu as well, because whatever it is. If you were in our shoes to get that word out, what are some of the like, where does your head go to, or like what do you do, right? Like what are some of the tips for some of the people listening, where instead of just doing the day-to-day chipping away marketing, which is what you should do. I hate to use the words hacks. I always say like, why should I go to all the teachers or the students when I can just talk to the principal, right? Like, who is the principal, like in your case, and then like, who would you be in our case? Because I'm curious if, the thing that came up today, for instance, logging on to these RFP sites and just putting our name in, and I'm like, I don't know, like that, it just seems, like there's a lot of people doing that, and now you're just competing on price. I just don't know if that's it. So all that said, I'm curious on, what would be your feed forward, is that what they call it, for us or for you, or what pops in your head when I'm rambling on?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a big fan of relationships, and I love it when I can sit down in front of somebody face to face and we can talk through what they're looking for, why they're looking for it. And it's the slow way, it really is. But for me, the most effective way is getting in front of people. And sometimes it's cold calling and just walking in their office. Like I've done a lot of research before I walk into, XYZ company's building, and then I figure out who the guy is, how long he's been there, just do some basic research. And then I walk in and go, hey, here's what we do. And I just kind of dive in and just start building a relationship like that, and show them how bad I want it, one, and meaning how hard I'm going to work for them. And two, how I specialize in this specific thing. And one of the things I like to leave it with is, look, I'm not gonna come beat down your door and chase you every day. I want you to know what I do, how I do it, and why I do it, and that I specialize in this. As long as you know that, when the time comes that you're looking, I know you'll call me if you want to, and you won't if you don't. And I'm going to go on to the next guy and find the people that want to work with me and that I want to work with them, because I've gone down the road of just work with whoever you can get your hands on. And I think we've all kind of figured out, you can kind of tell pretty early now of who you like to work with, who's the type of customer you like to work with. And then you can pass on some of the things that don't quite fit, or the people that you're kind of like, I don't know if that's going to be a good fit for us. But the most effective for us is definitely personal relationships and cold call, like finding them on LinkedIn, specifically targeting a specific subscription box in a specific, dog treat type environment, right? And then just talking to them about everything that has to do with that space, and then building the relationship and going from there. I haven't found it successful for me doing the whole like mass marketing and spending all the money on ads and all that stuff. I tried it, nothing happened from it, and maybe I just didn't do a good job of it. But
no, I think you hit it on that earlier of like, you got to have deep pockets for that. And I think when people see like, company X raises, $500 million, $100 million, what they don't realize is like, like 30-40% of that is just going to marketing, right? And so, it's cool to hear. It's funny because, like I said, I had 3 of those phone calls this morning, and we got a team locked up in our basement pretty much at home. It's just, just doing the grind of it, right? But there's always that like, everybody's like, is this like, what's the faster way of doing this? And I'm like, I think for now what we're doing, I'm like, we're the operations team is at, right at capacity, like it's all flowing through, at the proper pace. And it's funny that you said that, because I make sure that people all on our team like close the line with, okay, so, I know we're not working together or whatever, like it's not a good fit. But here's, and usually we've added value, we've answered a lot of questions. I do pride our team because our tenure is like 7 years or something like that. And so you have the same people that were working on Disney, doing some like other things, and you can get a lot of answers on stuff. And so usually by the time the phone call's over, we try to make like 3 really big added value answers. So we just say like, ask us anything about subscription boxes, what's your headache, whatever. And we say, okay, we gave you those 3 answers. Here's what I'm going to ask of you. Anytime you hear somebody talk about subscription boxes or fulfillment, you have them go to either like hit up paul.com, hit up jake.com, hit up Stephanie. Everybody in our company has like hit up in their name, and it just goes to their Calendly, right? And it's been interesting to see, which I would say steal that. It's been interesting to see that link, because even when I'm doing text messaging, I see friends like get another friend, and they're like, this morning I was like, hey Todd, this is Paul, hopefully he's cool with texting. If he doesn't respond, I think he uses hituppaul.com, and I'm like, oh shit, it's working. So it's cool to hear that you're doing that same kind of pound the pavement type of work, right?
Yeah, pounding the pavement is it's tough, and not a lot of people like to do it. I kind of cut my teeth on it in the real estate world, just going door to door, getting my teeth kicked in. But I learned pretty quick that, man, if I walk in 10 buildings, maybe 5 of them are pretty ruthless, but the other 5 I have good conversations with.
You're
and
gonna get one.
Yeah, and maybe you get one, but you at least have a good relationship with the rest of them. The other 5 or the other 4. But I think, to elaborate on that just a little bit, I think if you can find win-win scenarios and identify synergy, that's the best place. Because for me, one of the ways that we do that is, I've gone out to, there's a lot of just e-commerce consultants out there where I'm like, hey, you've got all these clients that you're helping them as they scale and grow their e-com businesses. When they ask you about fulfillment, bring them to us and we'll work together on it. And I'm just going to be I'm an extended value added service to you. It's free. There's no reason for you not to. It's not going to cost you anything. So we start getting, some referrals from there. The other places are co-packers and people that touch those people first, right? So a lot of times somebody's going to go get a co-packer and then they're going to go try to figure out fulfillment, right? So you go to the co-packer and say, hey, here's another service that you can add here. Just tell them, hey, when they ask you to do the fulfillment, because they're gonna, then you just flip them over to us. And then the third is going to all of these fulfillment companies out there and say, listen, you're going to eventually have to give somebody notice and kick them out. And because maybe they're not not as profitable as you want them to be, so you're going to backfill it with something more profitable, and that's totally okay. That's business, right? So instead of just giving them the boot, send them to me, and then I will work my tail off to find them a home as fast as possible. So you're basically saying, hey guys, I'm going to have to give you your notice, but this guy can solve your problem, and then I take it and run with it and get it placed somewhere else.
That's a good one.
And then, on top of that, there's the 3PLs that like you, that have a specific thing they chase, right? So there's people that you're turning away every day. Well, if you're just turning it away, you might as well say, hey, it's not really a good fit for us, but you should talk to this guy because he can definitely help you, go find the right fulfillment company. So, man, the amount of introductions we get on a daily basis from 3PLs saying, I'm giving this guy notice, or I'm passing on this deal, but you should take it. I think it'd be a good opportunity for you. And it's just finding synergy because it's a win for those guys, because in the eyes of that shipper, they're still like helping them. They're not just telling them, hey, get out of here, buddy. Not going to work, right? So we're just a free service to help all those folks. And we find synergy with all of these guys and how we can add value to them and save them from having to just axe people and give them an outlet to really help. Then it makes them look good and us look good and everybody wins. So.
Well, I got a boatload for you, so be ready.
Come on, brother.
You got it.
I'm also curious. You mentioned getting your teeth in in your early days as a commercial real estate broker, and then you focused in on 3PLs. 2020 was a challenging year for most people in real estate and a whole lot of other industries. But I'm curious, it might have been different for you with your focus in this particular niche.
30% up.
So I'm curious, can you share like how
feet are needed.
How it's been navigating the pandemic with your business?
Absolutely. So great question. And yes, 2020 was nuts. It was nuts all the way around, and in a good way for us. Fortunately, we were so blessed because a lot of my clients were taking more and more and more space because their demand.
Before the pandemic?
Yeah, so I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and I was at a real estate firm doing it the whole time. But
timing.
Right. So right when the pandemic hits, I go to my house. I'm working at home, and I'm just kind of sitting there going, you know what? I invented this sort of model that I'm doing here. I've got this really specific niche that I'm chasing and how I'm doing it. But I'm working at this real estate firm, and sometimes when I call a shipper and I'm like, my emails, this real estate firm, they're like, how does this add up? So I decided I'm going to brand myself, and it's time for me to go do this on my own. So I went in and talked to the guys at that company, and great folks, but it was time for me to go do it on my own. And with the with the way e-commerce has exploded through the pandemic.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the generation of people that were just going to the store because traditionally that's how they did it, and now they've had to learn how to buy things online because they can't go to the store because they're scared.
Yeah.
Those people have all the money too, and now they're starting to experience the Christmas morning every time they hear the doorbell ring. And now they're buying things right and left, and and that just 10x the business that we're both in. And I was busier than I've ever been in 2020, finding warehouses for guys as they're growing and growing and growing, and shippers too that are like, hey, I've got to get out of Amazon, shut me down. I've got to find somewhere to go. So I attacked that. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you how I attacked that. But when I heard Amazon was shutting down everything but essentials, my phone just burn up in my hand. I was just talking to so many people every day saying, hey, Amazon shut you down. We got to flip to a 3PL. Here's the guys that I think are a good fit for you, and just churning and burning and helping solving their problem so they can get their orders out, getting them out of Amazon. The 3PL is happy because he's taking on more and more clients and just creating wins all the way around and rolling. So it ended up being good.
We had a similar experience, except for it was like, hey, we're bankrupt. Hey, we fired that entire team. There's nobody for you to talk to. Hey, and it was just like laughable, and you're just like, we're just gonna watch the building burn for a week or two, and just kind of like, because there was like, as soon as you tried to fix one thing, something bigger exploded, right? Yeah. And boy, that was I don't think we've processed it yet, and I think Stephanie and I and I really do think it has something to do with the like athletic mindset, where you get your teeth kicked in a game, and you're like, wow, like that team ran the option. We really thought we were prepared for that. We weren't. Now we see and understand what that is. Okay, now we got to like go talk to other coaches. We got to get film. We got to like completely prepare for this other team 2 weeks down the road, but not quite yet. And so I think that like maybe also it's like a glutton for punishment, like it feels familiar, right? But I think that athletic mindset of like as much as we have non-sports people at our company and we try to steer away from the analogies, we used layup for a long time, and finally somebody after a couple of years ago, they go, what the hell's a layup? And I'm like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
That's Mariah. She's actually raising her hand. I didn't know if that was you or not. And so, that whole concept of like, the business didn't fail. We just need a new playbook. And it's kind of actually fun to figure out the new plays and the new style.
Yep.
And you need some players and you don't, and you need new coaches. And, what you need is like a really good owner who understands, when it's time to move the chess pieces. And I probably like enjoy that a little bit too much. It was definitely high pressure, but for us also it wasn't like a huge shift. It was more of like, okay, we got to just like close the door on a lot of stuff and like focus in on what we're really, really good at, which I would say over the past decade that we've been doing subscription boxes, that has been the constant theme of just like closing and narrowing and focusing, and COVID just made us kind of like do that a little bit quicker before we did our thing. So so what 3 tips, so if I'm a subscription box owner or an entrepreneur that's shipping e-commerce, let's just make it a little broader, what are the 3 things that when it comes to space that that are potential landmines, red flags, or something that you don't hear them saying to you, that you're like, actually, here's the first 3 questions or 3 things that you should look out for? What are those? What comes to mind when I ask that question?
When they're talking to a 3PL?
Well, if they're talking to you, or they're just looking for a, let's even call it like warehouse space or a 3PL, when they're just like, shit, I got a bunch of boxes, I need to get these packed, done out the door. I don't know if I'm looking for a fulfillment center or if I'm looking for a warehouse to do it myself. What are kind of like, you're like, oh, you see what they're working with contracts-wise or whatever, you're like, oh, hold on, let me help you out, this is bad. Like, what are those couple of things that always jump up? Yeah,
so if you're going to evaluate a 3PL and you're starting or you're newer, or you've been doing it yourself out of your garage or something, some of the main things you've got to dig into
first
is
call you.
Yes, first call me, and then I'll steer you in the direction you need to go.
Let's plug the website. It is
grownetwork.com. There's an E. So I called it Grow because I just want to help people grow, right? The whole concept of my business is helping the shippers grow and find the right 3PLs to grow with. And then as they grow, the 3PLs grow. And as the 3PLs grow, I grow. So it's just kind of a win-win-win. Anyway, and the silent E's on there for e-commerce. Just throw that out.
I like it. I wondered if that's what it was for.
GROWE network.com. We'll have to whatever they say, and they'll say check the link at the bottom. So if after they've contacted you, or let's say they don't know you exist for some dumb reason, what are those things?
Yeah, so if you're going to evaluate a 3PL, I would tell you the main things you need to look for is, how fast can they react to change? Because you're going to have, you got to have flexibility, and a lot of times 3PLs can get in their zone, and it's this way, and if it gets outside of this, everything just stops.
Yep.
So you've got to make sure you've got a nimble 3PL that can handle the ebbs and flows of your business, because that's a big deal for you, because you're going to run campaigns and sell. Well, this month we ended up doing a lot more orders than we thought we were going to do, and it's just hard to forecast sometimes.
Yeah, and
with
if I
the
can add
internet.
one thing to that, for subscription box companies in general, you're creating a product many times. You're creating a product every single month or whatever the cadence is, and one product is arriving late and things are happening, and so a company that's willing to be a little bit flexible, even by a couple days, and can really just change everything to maintaining your customers and making sure churn doesn't get out of control, because you're reliably getting those boxes out the door every month. So that's a great one. Sorry to
no, and who's my point of contact? Am I calling the owner of the company and he's going to help me, or are you going to pass me off to somebody that's working a 9 to 5, and do they really care about me or do they not? Who's my point of contact? That's a big deal, because and how many people are going to be working on this account? Meaning, if quality control is a big deal for me, then I may need some more people, but I want to make sure that these people are going to care for my product and care for every box just the same way that I do if I'm going to use a 3PL. And that's one thing that Adam said, is that Whitehead with Sportsman Box, he cared so much about how his presentation was. It was hard for him to finally go to let a 3PL run with it, because he knew that he was going to pack every box perfectly. So, in Adam's case, one of the things we had to look at was, real estate cost is a big thing, right? And how are you going to maximize that space? So if you're going to go take your own building, and you're going to hire your own people, are you going to do it? What's going to take you and a team of people 4 days to do, it could take a 3PL 1 day to do, right? Because they've got economies of scale. They've got all these different people, and they've got a bigger building, and they've got more equipment, and so those are some of the questions that I would be thinking through. And I think it makes sense for a lot of subscription box companies to utilize 3PLs for sake of scalability and growing, because you're not a logistics expert, and maybe you are, but most of you are not. And you can do it for a little bit, and you can work 14 hours a day just grinding and making sure that everything's done perfectly. But for you to truly scale and truly go from doing 1,000 orders a month to doing tens of thousands of orders a month, where you spend your resources, your time, your energy towards just pure growth, and let somebody else handle the nuances of the logistics that's already doing it for other people, and they know the business, and they know what they're doing. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really is just like an opportunity cost, right? If your unique ability isn't in logistics or shipping, then delegate it away, focus on what your unique ability is, because that's going to be the bigger opportunity to drive your business forward, whether that's marketing or whatever it might be.
It's I feel like I always kind of refer to us as the reluctant fulfillment company. We didn't realize how good we were at it, because we were just doing it for ourselves forever, and then it's kind of like one day we started talking to people outside our walls, and The only catch with that is like we've kind of developed our own internal language. So somebody in the industry will say something really common, and we're like, wait, what is that? Oh, that's this word for us, right? Because it came from Disney or like whoever. But it is interesting. There's a few things that you said where, you know, it's a win-win. We actually have in our company, we call it the 5-way win, which is like for like, you know, both parties, investors, you know, the employees, et cetera. And like, you know, not that it's the perfect win for everybody, but we just don't, it guides us to say yes or no, where it's like if somebody's getting screwed, you know, we just won't do it. And then the last thing that you just talked about, I was like, oh my gosh, that's us. We always say, you know, the thing that separates us is we're really flexible, which I think people underestimate that, especially for subscription, to Stephanie's point. We're proactive in that, like, you know, you get a dedicated account person, and like they're going to tell you this thing might happen, and here's 3 potential solutions: good, fast, cheap. You're not going to get like a bill from the 3PL that's like, hey, we did this thing and we're charged you, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is we're just like authorities in the space, right? Like we just know subscription and subscription boxes. So it's cool to hear again, like I'm like, oh, this dude knows what the hell he's talking about. That's awesome. Yeah, I look forward to like more conversations with you and just like hammering out some stuff. So
Yeah.
do you have another? I got our final question locked and loaded when you're ready.
No, I don't have any final questions.
Is it time? I see people tapping watches, so
Yeah.
let's shut the hell up, Paul. So one final question that I do like to ask people, and don't worry if you don't know a software, we'll do the book as the default question. But as you've ran your business for 5 years, I like to give people like a really concrete, not a like go get 'em tiger, you know, it works hard, you got to work hard. Yeah, okay, that's like default bullshit for everybody. So the thing that I like to ask is, what specific like names of software, or, you know, and it can just be like, oh, my iPhone or whatever, but like what is the like crutch for us, for example, like Asana Project Management has done us incredibly well. Recently we're using close.com for sales. No, I don't get any money from them. You should check that out. What I've heard, the way that you describe what you're doing, I'm like, oh shit, he should be on close.com, maybe. But you know, we're pretty strict about like audit everything, try everything, keep so it works. What are, you know, maybe just one of the things that come to mind? And if it's G Suite, that's great. But usually, you know, I tell people dig a little bit. What's something maybe that you use that people wouldn't typically assume that you would use as far as software?
Man, that's a good question. So, as far as softwares go, at the end of the day, man, I live on LinkedIn, and a lot of people use LinkedIn, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't even realize the capabilities of Sales Navigator. If you're a subscription box company, and I even talked to Adam Whitehead about this with the Sportsman box, I said, think about getting a message, or you narrowing down to people that live in areas that typically like to hunt, and think about sending those people a message from the CEO of the Sportsman box and just saying, you know, hey, I'm Adam. You should check out the Sportsman box. We're a hunting, because they may not have ever seen you, but if you can send them a message and make them aware of what you're doing, then I mean, you could scale. And that's not going to happen overnight, but that's just something you do while you're chilling on your couch or whatever. You're just kind of randomly doing things. But I use LinkedIn like there's no tomorrow, man. I live on it. I use it. I think it's a wonderful tool. And then HubSpot's with our CRM that actually has an astronomical amount of capabilities.
Sorry, go ahead.
But close.com, I just wrote that down. I'm going to take a look at that for sure.
Yeah, what's interesting is, you know, we've used that stuff. We've done the HubSpot thing, and you know, before we decided on Close, I mean, we've done Copper, you know, Google, whatever they call it now, Salesforce, HubSpot. I mean, you name it. And you know, the way that I kind of compare them is like HubSpot is, you know, it's everything you need and too much that you need, and then it's also a little bit more focused on marketing, whereas Close is like hyper specific, get the lead in and get them through the funnel as quickly as possible, and you know, anything that you want to know in between, it's like really easy drag and drop tools. One thing that came to mind, this is for you, and I can kind of have a follow-up of, the more in-depth how we use it. But I will say, I don't know, have you got into HR Recruiter at all?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, here you go. This is gold for you. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
So contact HR, contact LinkedIn. Since I assume you have something to do with the hiring process, you'll qualify for like a HR account. So I got Sales Navigator, all that stuff, and I just kind of on a whim. I think actually we were trying to figure out how to get live stream running or whatever, this StreamYard, and so I just started signing up for everything. And LinkedIn's HR allows you to even do a deeper search into people. But you got to contact them and validate like you are in HR. But then you can create these folders for different categories of people. So imagine LinkedIn is assuming you're looking at these people to hire, but really, truly, you're looking at them as like a target audience. And and then I did some other stuff with LinkedIn HR, but which I can share with you later on more in depth. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. The amount of access, and I keep telling people, I'm like, I probably should shut up and just, do it and stop giving it away. But like LinkedIn really is kind of that. LinkedIn right now feels like Google AdWords was at a point in time. So yeah, check out that LinkedIn HR. And if anybody wants to holler at me, I'll give them the kind of software hack to even take that LinkedIn HR a step closer, so anybody else can get at me. So, all right, well, man, thank you. So I feel like I could talk forever, and I think that this conversation was maybe more for, us versus people listening, but also sometimes that's like the greatest value is when you witness and hear like a real conversation. So I thank you for that. And as we head out here, where can people find you, and how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so they can go to grownetwork.com, get a hold of us there. I mean, clearly, if you add me on LinkedIn, I'm going to add you back, and we're going to spark a conversation pretty quick. I live on LinkedIn messages, so easily add me there, and a lot of my team is on there too, and those guys are the same way. So we can get connected there, connected through the website. My number's on there. However you want to do it, I'm ready to rock and roll, so call me whenever.
Awesome. Everybody that's Summit Hogue, if you're looking for warehouse or fulfillment help, give them a ring. Grownetwork.com with an E after the W. So thank you so much for being on the show, man. I look forward to connecting with you after. Let's do something next week if you're good with that.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm headed to Tampa Bay right now. Go Chiefs.
Oh,
and,
okay, nice.
Okay.
Yeah. Diehard
All right.
Chiefs fan. I'm calling it right now. Kansas City Chiefs win. So just you heard it here first.
Mariah, what are you calling it? Mariah's like what?
Mariah's like sports
Super Bowl.
ball.
Super Bowl. Who's gonna win?
Buccaneers.
Okay,
Ooh.
she said Bucks.
Easy.
Because of what?
Because I like pirates.
Because she likes pirates.
That's okay.
She is not a sports fan, so that's why I put her on
Someone's like,
the
I
spot.
understand
she
now.
looked like she died when I was like, she was like, what? So, all right, well, thank you so much, man.
Yeah,
we'll
thanks,
talk
Summit.
soon, and appreciate your time. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much for having me on. Talk to you guys soon.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Stephanie, that was Summit Hogue of Grow Network. I feel like I kind of hijacked that and just asked some, straight business questions. But what was your takeaways from that conversation?
I thought that was interesting that an opportunity kind of presented itself for Summit to join our show this week, because just the last couple weeks I've spent time thinking through our Bulu's 3-year plan, which included adding multiple warehouse locations, something that we could use Summit's help with.
I feel you wanting to ask that question.
So, all our listeners may have just witnessed the beginnings of a beautiful friendship between us and Summit.
Yeah.
So, and I think he had some good information to share with, other subscription box companies who might be entertaining the idea of whether they should continue fulfilling boxes themselves, and whether they want to do that in a warehouse space versus, using someone like Summit to connect them to the appropriate 3PL. Because, if you've been doing it yourself, it's kind of scary to be like, I'm going to let go of this and give my baby to somebody else and let them create it.
Here's my counter to that, though. Did you start your subscription box to dedicate your time to managing fulfillment?
Exactly.
And most people didn't. Most people did it because they're in love with the product,
right?
the product market fit. And, at the end of the day, if you don't realize that you are a logistics company who really needs to manage your cash correctly, you're doomed. And take it from me, I know this firsthand. If you don't, I now compare it to, that's like saying, I want to build this beautiful website, and then, you're not really worried about the servers or what you're using on that front, right? And, you can't have a great website without servers, right? Or it's like inviting customers into a store with half-filled shelves. Like, you're like, no, you're not ready. You need, like, all of your shelves filled with products. You know how you're going to get them. And, why are you inviting customers in? And so I've gotten in some heated battles with people of like, no, it's all about the product. I'm like, well, no shit, it's about the product. But, like, take it a step back. It's about the logistics and cash flow. Take it a step back from that. Like, it's about, like, actually having money to do what you want to do. So that was, the epiphany, I think, 4 years in that we had. When, there were, if we want to grow, we do this. If we want to be profitable, like, what is this thing that's sucking up our time? And you're like, oh, we're not focused on the logistics and cash flow. Let's do that. Oh, clearly we should be doing this for other people, right?
Right.
Yeah, that was it was a really cool conversation. Yeah, I'm interested to learn more. What software have you used recently that you think the viewers can benefit from?
A new one recently?
Yeah. Boo, boo, boo.
I know.
Boo.
I'm trying to think. I mean, you know what I'm going to say. My
No, I don't.
favorite software
Well,
of all time. I mean, I just.
Yeah, that's like crack for you.
Asana can be used in so many, right? Like.
But not a CRM.
It's hard for me,
not
right?
A CRM.
Because.
Do not use project management tools for CRMs. You psychotic.
If you
bastard.
ask me for individual departments and use cases, then I might have a different answer. But in terms of, I work with a lot of our department heads, so about like solving, cross-functional issues across departments.
Right.
And one of the best softwares that can be used by multiple teams in a variety of different ways to manage the day-to-day tasks, to see a project through to completion, or even to manage an ongoing cyclical process is Asana.
We need to contact Asana to sponsor this show.
I need to be like an affiliate.
You really do.
Yeah.
You really do. So I was going to say, a lot of people hear me chirping about clothes.com. I actually went out and purchased a Remarkable 2 digital drawing pad. This thing's badass. So for all you Moleskine users out there, Remarkable 2, I think it's finally cracked the code on something that feels exactly like paper. You can digitize it into, it's probably the only feature that I wish they had was like, I wish I could write in it and it could just dump right into like Asana. You can go to, Google Drive or email or whatever, but I think they got me finally. And I've been trying digital writing devices forever,
I
right?
know.
Like you name it, I've tried it. And literally an hour into this thing after I set it up, I'm like, oh shit, this is it. I can write on this, and it's on my desktop, it's on my phone.
It is very cool.
So yeah, shouts to the Remarkable 2. All right. Anything else you want to let our viewers know before we skedaddle?
Let's skedaddle.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This has been Box Talks with Bulu. This is...
I'm Stephanie Jarrett.
Oh no, we do it this way.
Okay.
My name is Paul. I'll start it over. Ready? This has been Box Talks with Bulu. I'm Paul Jarrett.
And I'm Stephanie Jarrett.
Da 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 da.
Oh man. Yep. That's how we're going to do it, ladies and gentlemen.
Should we do some more?
No.
No, not yet.
No.
What are we doing now? We're going to do another show?
Let's move on to the next show.
All right. Let's move on to the next show.
We went over time a little bit, so
yeah,
we're going to have to hustle. We do need to do an intro, though.
Yeah.
People in the back, are we ready for
Do we want to
intros
do
Summit?
Mariah's thing, or are we going to...
Well, we need to intro Summit.
Yeah.
Okay, should we do that? That's what I'm saying.
Do you guys want us to do that, or do you want us to do all that stuff at the very end?
We can either do the Summit intro now, or we could do both intros after.
Is that easier, or what's easier?
Either way is equal effort on my part. So.
All right, well, let's do Summit since
Okay.
we're here. How do you want to do it?
First, let's just say welcome, and then we'll chit chat, and then we'll be like, we're
Oh,
excited
oh,
because
like
we're gonna have Summit.
The
right?
bumper in the front?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
how we usually do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to Box Talks with Bulu. This is Paul Jarrett, and with me I have the one and only
Stephanie Jarrett.
No, Mariah was supposed to talk in that part.
Oh.
That was,
wah,
I saw you
wah.
build up, so that was great. But I feel like I'm going to just do gotchas every time.
Yeah, this
So,
is my life,
yep.
everybody.
And there's kids doing it now, 2 little boys. So, awesome show today. The show takes a little bit of an interesting turn, right? So that'll, like, in that, I feel like it turns into more of a business conversation than a show. So I'm interested to see how listeners will react to that. Also, we had Clubhouse running for a while, all right? So what, between the last podcast and this podcast, we actually listened to the first show, right?
Yeah,
What were your thoughts on that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Grindstone crushes it.
Grindstone crushes it. That's who
Grindstone
produces our
Media,
podcast
who
for
does
us.
our podcast. Shouts
Yeah.
to Grindstone.
But our first episode, if you haven't listened to it, go back, take a listen, because one of the things Paul and I wanted to do with this podcast is not only bring in some really good experts in different areas
Right.
related to subscription box and kitting and fulfillment, but to also bring in some of the experts that we have on our very own team, because, you know, so many times we look outside when actually our team has more experience than a lot of people when it
Yeah,
comes to running
yeah.
a subscription box business.
For
So
sure.
our first episode, we had Mariah Nimitz, who has worn a lot of hats at Bulu, but
Yep.
she got our customer support team up and running. And
And for
customer
Di-
support
and for
isn't even
Disney.
fair, because it really is overseeing the entire
Yeah.
customer experience.
And Disney entrusted her with it.
Yeah. So that was our first episode, and
How do you like listening to yourself?
I hated listening
It's
to
the
myself.
worst, right?
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the worst.
Paul gave me some advice. He said, listen to the first episode. You don't have to listen to every one of them afterwards.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
probably what I'll do.
The advice should be like listen to every episode until like the structure is down, and then don't just skip around.
Yeah.
Don't listen to
I can
the-
hardly listen to, like, when I record a voicemail, you know, like my
Yeah.
voicemail message. I can hardly listen to that back.
Oh, I love listening to myself. No, I'm kidding.
You love listening to me.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. That was one of the things I was like, oh shit, she sounds so much better. And then listening back with like podcasts with Clint, I'm like, oh god, he's so good at like.
Nobody can match Clint.
Yeah.
but-
So that's cool.
All right. Well, so today we
Yeah.
had, so Mariah was a great guest.
Excellent. I was going to say
Perfect.
also, like, I'm going to call bullshit on you. I'm going to say we invite people that we want to talk to, mostly because we feel like they'll bring the most value. So it isn't,
Sure.
it isn't like,
Yes.
oh, this expert or whatever. It's like, nope, we like this person. We know they know what they're talking about. Or this is, you know, like in today's case, this is kind of like a new person that, you know, we've heard a lot of good things about. And you know, we're going to get connected with them anyway, but like, let's learn with everybody else about this thing that we didn't really know existed.
Yes.
So that's I would say we're bringing, you know, our expertise and saying like, these are the people that you should want to hear from in the subscription box world.
That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
Well said.
So we have, on that note, we have Summit Hogue from Grow Network, GROWE, network.com.
That's right.
Yep. And he is here to talk to us about.
Well, he's a real estate broker who focuses on 3PLs. So he has a lot of experience in real estate. I think he's been working specifically with 3PLs
And the
for
dude
the
is
past,
just hustling.
yeah, for the past 5 years or so. And I think he's done a really good job just networking,
Yeah.
and he can really
Boots on
connect.
the ground, baby.
Yeah, he can really connect companies to a good 3PL who's going to fit their needs. So he has a lot of advice to share, and I'm excited to have him.
Yeah, I now have a million more questions for him, but I think the content that we captured will be pretty valuable, but that's up for the listeners. So check it out. Up, we have Summit Hogue from Grow Network, and we hope you enjoy it.
Enjoy.
And we're going to say this thing too. If you have 3 people you think would enjoy this podcast, please pass it on to them.
Oh, of course.
Statistically, that's the
great.
best ask you can. I got that from Shankar Vedanand.
Oh, shout out Shankar.
Shout out to Shankar. We're going to have him on the show just for the hell
Shankar's
of
like
it.
my spirit animal.
All right, let's go.
Alright, that was well done.
All right. Should we get set up? Do you want an intro? I'm introing, so we need to set up Mariah, because I'm the guest this time.
Yeah, so she's in
Yeah,
charge.
if you guys just wanna talk about it, that's fine too.
No?
If
I
you
think
don't-
it would be good to have one other person.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna use the restroom really quick.
Okay, and we only have 45 minutes, or we're gonna be
How
cutting.
much of these though?
Yeah,
Which is
I can just
it'll
turn
be
it off,
Fox
right?
Talks Shorts.
Sometime I was being interviewed by ESPN and,
Oh, I love that. I hope they do that.
I think we can still keep it concise and get a lot of content packed in, and there
Yeah.
probably won't even have to do a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And it'll be a 40-minute episode.
Yeah.
This is my first
I
time
hope so.
producing for you guys. You just leave the live stream going.
So,
in between.
Mariah,
We're raw,
Okay,
Untitled.
okay, cool, sounds good.
I feel like I should keep my same microphone so we're not like
yeah, probably.
spitting germs into things. And then, I don't know, where would you like Mariah to sit?
Let's see, so Mariah, are you gonna be the host this time?
Yeah, Paul and I are gonna kind of interview Stephanie. When we had three
Oh, okay.
before, we had two people on one,
Yeah.
on.
And they brought in like a little stand mic.
Okay, yeah, that's what we'll do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just have you sit next to Paul and I'll bring over a third mic.
Okay.
Awesome, thank
Are
you.
you guys okay with that on the?
Yes, I am, as long as you are.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Okay.
See, I'll grab that third mic. Just go to the guys in the back and make sure that they're recording on this one too. Out of curiosity, what software did Summit suggest? Because I couldn't hear his audio during.
He just said LinkedIn. He said he lives and dies in LinkedIn, and it sounds like he almost uses the messages on LinkedIn as his primary inbox.
Yeah, okay. I mean, LinkedIn is a great place to network, so.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So I made a couple notes, though. I'm not sure Mariah and even the Grindstone team, when we get to editing, I'm not sure I love the idea of keeping in the LinkedIn HR
Okay.
feature.
Yeah, I don't want us to get us like permabanned from using.
Yeah, because it is kind of manipulating the way
Yeah.
you're supposed to use that software, so I maybe would
Do you wanna,
not
like,
include that
cut
section.
out that whole conversation?
Yeah,
and
and
separate
Mariah
it?
can make a note too, because I know she'll listen to it before it
Yeah.
is finalized, but I would
Yeah.
maybe like to be careful about what we do and don't communicate.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay,
I've
awesome.
I've been the primary editor on all the podcasts.
Okay.
Up until after Bulu, so I'll just make a note of all the, cut that part out.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Paul will be like, where's that part? No, he won't, because he'll forget.
Yeah, I forgot about it, so I was looking at whatever, he'll figure it out. Okay.
Didn't hear a thing.
Okay.
If you want, you can scoot your chair over here
Yep.
too.
Oh, I did this.
I'll go to the
I was
guys in
gonna
the
tell
back
you to
and
bring
make sure they
another
know to set that up.
article, of course.
Oh,
That doesn't look like.
Here, take
oh, I don't, is it that big a deal?
No.
Do you think? Okay. I can start doing that though, if you want.
Yeah, we know Nicole.
My microphone was on? Is that what she said?
No, we were just talking about editing something out of the final episode, but I think that's raw and unreal. I don't know how we're probably gonna have to move that a little bit.
Somebody burped or farted.
Oh, we're still, oh, I didn't even know we were still live.
Oh, yeah,
We said it multiple times.
I thought we paused it in between.
We do both.
I like to live dangerously.
I had my microphone on in the bathroom, but whatever.
How come it says that there are 0
We might have-
viewers?
we
Where is
might-
Nicole viewing us?
We might offend all 5
We're on
viewers.
a couple platforms, so she might
Okay.
just not be on the one that they're pulling metrics.
Gotcha, okay.
It also doesn't always seem to be correct, because when I just closed it on my phone, it says 7 or something like that.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Okay, alright, that mic's active, so whenever you have a chance, John will get you to do a mic test.
Hi, Mariah, this is John in the, control room here, I think is what we're calling it. And can you just give us a quick mic test? Just tell us, you know, what you have for breakfast, or just say test.
Oh, hi, can you hear me? I had a Go Macro bar for breakfast,
Go macro.
because they are allergen friendly. I'm allergic to everything.
Mariah is a fragile human
I've
being.
developed a new allergy in the last 6 months. You guys
Oh,
wanna know
no.
what it is?
Yes.
Band-Aid adhesive.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, it's terrible. So you guys have seen, I've had like stuff on my fingers, I cut my finger, And so I had to like cut gauze, and then I've started using duct tape, which for some reason is allergen friendly. So, fun fact.
Wow.
Information you didn't care about.
Great information to share in a microphone test, audio test.
That's live stream.
Everything sounds really good.
Are you wearing the microphone now? Or?
I'm sorry about your allergy,
I'm not
but
wearing anything.
the sound is good.
So do you need me to clip in?
Yeah, wherever
Oh,
the
whoa.
clip microphone.
Now I'm on TV.
Oh, I have it on.
Okay, well, I guess,
Should get off.
I guess we'll, let
Do
me
we
see if
need
I have
microphones?
another one we can.
I can be really loud.
Yeah, let me go ask real quick.
No,
for
we
a
could just
microphone to give
do
you,
this.
just so that way anybody live can.
We could just do this, we could just hold it.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we could just.
Will it pick up if we just set it between them? Would that be sufficient or not?
It would actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if it's set between you guys, that is a better idea. If you talk to me real quick, I can gauge.
Yep, let me,
Here, you wanna, oops, here, Paul, clip it.
check, 1, 2. I think you need to talk as well, right?
Check, 1, 2. Hello, I'm here.
Hello.
I just want to sing for some reason.
No.
I do not.
I did
Aluminum,
flip that at the
linoleum.
top,
Oh.
maybe flip back. I
Oh, is it
slid it
the-
one way. I just need to
the-
slide back the other way, maybe.
Oh, I see, is it this?
Yeah, I did hit that button, I thought that was on and off.
Let me check real quick.
Check.
Nicole's killing me with her text messages.
This way.
Now what's up?
I can't watch This Is Us because I cry so much when I watch it. I can't actually see anything that's happening on screen.
Yeah.
Somebody's always cutting onions when,
Was Nicole comparing the squiggle scenario we talked about with Paul to one of the episodes
She
from
said,
This Is Us?
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you watched This Is Us? Don't live dangerously.
This Is Us makes me cry whenever I.
Oh.
It's a heartbreaking show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why people would do that to themselves.
I'm a sympathetic crier, so if there's crying on screen,
It is.
I am crying.
It's a tearjerker.
It is, yeah.
They left us to our own devices.
What do we do? There's no grindstone people in the
Hello?
room.
We're like animals in a zoo.
Speaking of animals in the zoo, have you played Zuba yet on your app?
No. You send me all these games and I feel like a noob. Like, I don't know what these things
I don't know
are.
they are
I don't know
either.
how to play games.
I never was into it until, our son Hilo is just constantly like, Dad, will you download? And I'm like the opposite of most parents where they're like, don't do this, don't do that, like on your iPad or whatever. I'm like, if it's not like bullets to the head, like Deer Hunter, I'm okay with that, right? It's a little, you can turn off the blood, right? But then if a game pops up, especially because like there will be really, if a kid learn how to play solitaire, did you know that?
Oh, jeez.
He learned how to play solitaire, he's like 4, right? And then there's this
Teach
like,
him how to play chess so that we can have like a Queen's Gambit situation.
he is 4.
Minus the drugs.
He is 4. And then there will be like these puzzle games, whatever. I don't like the whole like gambling for money type of thing, like the loot boxes. I dislike that. But I actually view it as like, if you don't want your kid on a device, like create something more for him to go to. So it's almost like compete with the device, don't just like shut it down. Or if you're gonna say like, hey, put it down, here's Play-Doh.
Do something else.
Like
Yeah.
Play-Doh, don't just direct them. So we'll, time will tell if that works. It seems like it's working. I mean, I get from day one, he's had just like an iPad in the toy box, right? Like an old iPad. And you'll see him like throw the iPad away and pick up like a ball and a bat. But,
Nice.
sorry, I drank way too much soda.
Yeah,
Right?
whatever. Oh, water bottle?
Is there one in there? It doesn't need to be cold.
Oh, Mariah's so low maintenance compared to me.
Another
Like,
one of
ice
my
water, please.
Another one of my issues. Cold water is actually bad for asthma.
Is it? Oh.
It like.
I was gonna say careful on the adhesive.
That's something I learned when I was.
So you like room
Let me
temp?
remove the label real quick.
Oh.
Sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Censored
I
branding
should have done
here.
that earlier. I think it's fine. I don't think the camera caught it, but just in case. Did you
Good
get it?
God.
Go find a pair of scissors. There you go.
I'll do
Yeah.
just put it
Or
down
we could
here.
also keep it on the floor and just pull it
Yeah.
up when you
Yeah,
need to.
okay.
Let's just do that.
We'll just do that. Sorry, I mangled that ball for you then, but.
All good. Here. My hand's big enough. Covers
There you
the
go.
I can get it off for you. all the people listening are like, good God, my ears.
You guys just need to do a box description with
We're
Aquafina,
so
and then it's all good. This is just powerful.
Exactly.
We
should write that into
we
it.
probably have a contract
Thank
with
you.
the owner of Aquafina or NDA or something somewhere.
All right,
Whenever you guys are ready, we're
you guys
still
want to
ready.
do an intro
Yeah.
and I'll be quiet?
3, 2, 1. Wait, do we need to do clap?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you.
Welcome to Box Talks by Bulu. My name is Paul Jarrett, and today we have a special co-host on the show.
I'm
and
Mariah
that is-
Nimich.
Mariah, how the hell are you?
Super frick good.
Yeah, this is becoming a normal thing where we're all just like jammed in a room. So
Yeah.
it's fun to rearrange. So Mariah, for those that didn't listen to the first podcast, can you just go ahead and tell us a little bit who you are, what you do, and what your spirit animal is?
Well, I'm Mariah. I've been at Bulu for, goodness, 8 years, I think, this year? 7 years? I don't know, hell of a long time. And I do a little bit of everything on the team, but most recently I've been working on our customer experience and also helping a little bit out with the podcast, which is why I'm in the room. And I'm excited because today we're turning the tables on one of the bosses.
Who's that?
And we've got Stephanie here
D-Boss.
to talk about product development.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I kind of want to sit back and let her grill you, right? But I'm also, like, I think it's worth noting to the listeners that we run a system called EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's eosworldwide.com. Big fan of it. You know, even if you don't, you know, choose to do the full program, I think it's a great system to learn, like, blocking and tackling, you know, how to prevent people from just constantly talking in a meeting, how to run a meeting effectively. I really think the 30 tools are very valuable to use. And recently, Stephanie is named our integrator. And so usually in every system, you have like a visionary and an integrator. So I'm the visionary, you're the integrator, which hasn't been the case for years.
At least not officially.
Yep, one of your main requirements was I have to have Mariah helping me do this because I can't do 50 things, right? So really,
So Mariah gets to do 50. Poor Mariah.
25 and 25, right?
Yeah.
So like really in the room we have kind of like the visionaries and the integrators, and and so
Feel the power.
you know, and really what that equates to for our listeners is like, you know, the people that are actually extracting the vision from the person leading the company, you know, painting the picture and actually executing it, right? And knowing when to say, you know, that's a bad idea, that's a good idea, or that's a good idea, but not right now. So believe it or not, I'm hoping on this episode that like we get banter from you to you grilling her with questions about, and I'll join in as appropriate, but I'm curious to know, I think a lot of companies have this dynamic of like, oh, there's the one person that's just floating around and, you know, head in the clouds, or they're way thinking too far ahead. And I think that's frustrating for a lot of operational people. It's hard for them to see the value in that, right? Like, let that thinker think. And then vice versa, where, like, you know, the visionary is going like, like, what does that thing matter for? Like, don't, like, it's just such a stupid little time-consuming thing, you know, and it's like, we need this thing to function as a company, you know. So I'm curious, you know, I want to let you drill her with some questions, but I also want to hear what it's like. I kind of want them to sting a little bit. Is that weird? Like, I kind of want people to hear that it's not easy, you know, with that dynamic, right? So like, I want people to feel okay knowing that, you know, when at the top you have doers and talkers, you know, or visionaries, whatever, like, that's okay. You don't need a specific structure, or you don't need your interpretation of how a company should run. You need people the best at what they do, doing what they do. So I'm curious, like, how you two deal with that, and probably me in particular, because I know it can't be fucking easy.
I mean,
like let's start a podcast. How? I don't know, let's show up and record it and edit it, and it's like, oh my god. So now Mariah's like, in my spare time, I run a podcast.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest things I've had to learn as an integrator position is just to sit back and listen, and really, really listen, and to have patience to listen.
We should first
until
say,
all the ideas get out.
we should first say, can you tell the people who the hell you are?
So that's another good example, because visionaries tend to just go.
Yeah.
Go, million ideas before breakfast, as our EOS coach says, all that stuff. And then like, oh yeah, we were supposed to do an intro. So I'll introduce
And I'm
myself
like,
real quick.
I'm like, nah, we'll edit if it makes sense. If not, whatever.
Yeah, and also like for Mariah might be thinking the same thing, like, oh, we're not talking about EOS and integrator and stuff. We're talking about product development.
Did you not see my bullet
Yeah.
points, Paul? I wrote you an email and it
Yeah.
had bullet points.
So the other part is be a good listener and also roll with it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like, well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
But the first part is like, what goes through my brain is like, if somebody doesn't listen to the show because they're like, they didn't intro that person, like, fuck them, we don't want them anyway, right? Like, who's really gonna do that?
It'll all work out.
At the
Well, by
size
this
of the
time they've
show.
listened to every single one of these episodes and they know who I am.
Right. And then the second thing is like, structure and reading, like, that's all great, but then it's like everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? And then, going through this and going like, yeah, that makes sense, but then you go like, wait a second, like, these are the two handlers for me. Here's an audience that gets to hear what it's like. I know there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with this thing. So, yeah, we can do the product thing, but, like, very rarely are you going to get this dynamic, willing to talk about that in front of a lot of people. And I'm like, oh, that is probably interesting to a lot of people. But fuck it, if we don't want to do that, I'm cool with that too. Like, that's what the integrator's job is, right?
Yes. So let me do the integrator job. I'll introduce myself real quickly. My name's Stephanie Jarrett. I am a co-founder of Bulu. I am the integrator of Bulu. And I am here today to talk about developing a good subscription box as a product. We've launched, I think, 17 different subscription box programs in partnership with our clients, and we've created dozens more, like, kind of
Like
projects
50,
and
yeah.
things like that.
We've
So,
executed 50 different programs, 17 specific subscription
books, like ongoing, recurring, brand new subscription programs. And of those 17, I think I might be one of the few people that was involved in every single one of them. So I'm here to talk a little bit about, like, how you create a product, how do you make sure that it's a good product, in and out, and the relentless nature of that today. That's what I'm here for.
And I think we can even tie in some of what Paul wants to talk about, because hearing Paul talk about what an integrator does for a visionary is a lot of, Bulu as a team takes a really similar role when it comes to translating what a big brand wants out of a concept or an idea that they bring to us. And Stephanie, I'm going to kick this off with, like, this is kind of I think a good starting place question is, say Clorox rolled up to us, which they did, and said, here's something that we want to do. Sometimes brands come in with, like, a fully fledged, this is exactly what we want in the box, we have the design ready, and sometimes they just come with, like, hey, we want to put marketing materials in this box that sends people to buy stuff from our stores. Like, they can come to us with all, varying shades of haziness in their vision. And part of what you have done on all of these programs is kind of translate those ideas into something that we know from our experience will work in a program. So that, like, how do you take that concept? Talk me through, like, an example of something that we've done with a brand that's like that.
Yeah, the first thing we do, first off, good comparison, right? Because when we're working with clients, it's almost like they're the visionary and they've got this idea for a subscription box, and then it's our job as the integrator and the team to tell them, here's the good ideas you had, the ones that are viable, the ones that'll help make this a reality and, like, meet your goals, and here's the ones that we maybe need to set aside.
Tell us how you did the last one.
I feel like I don't know what.
Oh, that O-N, the tube.
Oh.
Tell me how you did that one.
Yeah, our most recent, somewhat of a presentation, Paul actually took the lead on the concept. But
I was a little bit shook by how surprised you were of like, oh, like everybody was like looking at it, they go, oh, this is really good. Oh, actually, Paul.
Didn't mean to offend you. It was
No,
really
no,
good.
yeah, but it was just like repeatedly, like you did that?
Yeah.
Come on, I've learned something over the past.
So, Mariah, the first thing we do is we write down what are the goals of the program, and then we flesh out those details into a document that we call the box charter, which is really just the guidelines for what the program is meant to do. So what are the goals? Who's the target audience? What are the KPIs? What are the client expectations? We map all of this into what we call a box charter.
That gets us a high five 1 year from now.
Yes, and then as we develop the product and the entire program, we always go back to that charter to evaluate whether we're going in the right direction. So one of the first things, like I said, is defining what the goals are, because sometimes the goal is, it's a marketing initiative, so they're not necessarily looking to make money on the subscription box, but they're looking to drive customers to the store, a retail store.
It can't be
Or-
just make money faster.
Well, sometimes it is. Sometimes
But-
they're like, we
but-
want an additional revenue stream.
But we have to like define that,
Right.
Like, what does that mean? Because that usually is what people, they're like, well, I want the coolest thing in the world that's highly profitable and makes a ton of money, but I don't want to spend any money. So how do I do that? You know, I don't know. I wouldn't be doing this if I knew that.
Yes. So we call that the why. Like, why? What is the
Why
purpose
does
of this
this
box?
exist?
What purpose is it serving for our partners, their company, and then what is the why for the customer as well? Why do the customers want it? What need is it fulfilling for them, or what desire?
Which the amount of products out there, subscription boxes that don't have that, or you get really far in the process and you're still like with the company, like have you understood why this exists at all? Like, why are people gonna and they're like, oh yeah, we got to figure that out. And you're like, oh my god, that's like step
Yes.
one.
And writing it down.
Yes.
Writing it down,
Holding people
disseminating it to
accountable to
all
it, yeah.
parties so that you
Yep.
can come back to it. It doesn't mean you
Yeah.
can't change it,
Yep.
but it does mean we're all going to work from the same
Yeah.
page, because if we're not evaluating with the same criteria, then
And then you get this after you're into it.
it's a mess.
I think that people might, and you're like,
It turns into like, well, I showed it to my neighbor, or I showed it to like, I don't know, my church group or whoever it is, and like they thought that maybe blankety blank blank
Yeah.
or whatever, and it's like, well, they're not the audience,
So
because
you were in
this
the
is
most bias
meant for
setting ever
children,
asking
or I
an
don't, whatever.
unqualified person. Got it. Okay, continue.
Yeah, that's all. Next question, please.
Well, as you go through this process, someone knocks on Bulu's door and says, we want a box that has, crayons in it or something. How often do you go through that process of concepting something, and then have you ever had to tell a brand that I don't think this is going to work?
We have had to tell a brand that.
What happened?
A lot.
Well, hopefully we can steer them in a direction where it will work better for them, right?
Right.
And that comes from years of experience, and a lot of that is not just experience, understanding what makes a good product, based on some research, based on industry trends, based on what we know in kind of subscription box culture, if there is one. But also financially, we've become really good at
Yeah.
forecasting and building financial models for our partners. And so a lot of partners will say, I really want this great box, and I want them to have this type of a value, and I want the total value of the box to be $50, but I want to sell it for $10, right? And so, but it's not that that's not impossible, but it's pretty
Rare,
tricky if you
yeah.
don't have existing manufacturing relationships, or
And
stuff like that. So
that problem or that situation is not exclusive to like, oh, I'm a mom and pops, or oh, I'm a medium-sized business, or oh, I'm a giant business. Because let me tell you, every single person says, I don't have that much money for that budget, that ship. No, you don't understand. We're different. We need cheaper, blah, blah, blah. Like, it is everybody ever. And if they don't say it out of the gate, then eventually somebody on their team says that. So like, no, you're not special, you know, just starting out, small, medium, multi-billion-dollar, everybody is like, I want this amazing thing for cheaper than you've ever given it to anybody else.
Exactly right.
We are good, but we are not magicians.
We are not magicians.
And I do think that, to your point, like, that's, we don't say we can do that, you know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just that dose of real talk catches people off guard. Cause you're
Yeah. And the last part is, what's different about your box compared to the competition? What's
Right.
that competitive
Right.
landscape look like? Because if you're not offering anything unique and you're, I don't know, a pet subscription box where there's a handful out there and there's
Yeah.
a couple that are
Yeah.
really big market leaders,
Yeah.
you know, it's going to be tough to compete without something really unique about your box and your experience.
Yep. I do believe that a subscription box is for larger brands, it's just a tool. It's like an additional revenue stream, marketing tool, et cetera. So you got to treat it like that. It's not like this is our next biggest revenue stream. Like, that's just not the reality of it. And I do think for people starting off, if they start their business as a subscription box, you started with a tool to support a certain group of people, and you absolutely have to build beyond that. And what that usually means is like a marketplace, as we call it, on your website, where you sell individual items. You sell stuff on Amazon. You know, you're getting brand recognition. You allow other people to put their products in. You sell their products, et cetera. So I think that's really important and something that is surprising to people. A lot of the amount of times that I've like told somebody, like, if you want my honest opinion, I think you need to go take this product, this individual item, and go sell it on Amazon. And they're just floored, you know, because they're like, no, I'm trying to work with you. And I'm like, you asked my opinion, and I'm telling you, I don't think your biggest opportunity is with us right now. Like, literally, just go start an Amazon page. You can always shut it off. But like, if that's your number one seller and people are asking for it more, put it for more people in more places, and like, come back to us when you're, you know, tapped out all these 3 other big opportunities you need to tackle, right?
Exactly.
You look like you're going to say something else.
No, I'm listening.
You're like, don't tell people to not do boxes.
No way, everybody should be
Yeah.
doing a box.
And you're running the sales department?
Yeah.
I want people to do a subscription box if it makes sense, and because, you know, I think we very wisely built our model off of a growing, successful program for others. Like,
Right.
if they join us and it doesn't, you know, it isn't a certain size or it isn't growing, like, we're not going to make any money off of it. So like, that's our trick to holding ourselves accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think most fulfillment companies or people that are in this space are just like, just get as many under the roof as you can as possible. And, you know, we have a lot of clients that have joined us and never left, and I think that's the proof point, right?
Yep.
We're not looking for the quick buck. You know, we call them partners for a reason, you know.
Yeah, so let's drill into that, because I'm curious, when it comes to product development, there are so many subscription boxes on the market, like you said, across all sorts of product categories and verticals. So what do you say, whether we're evaluating a concept for a partner or evaluating a partner who, you know, say is already shipping some boxes and wants to come on for one of our services, what do we look for in terms of things that would make them unique, that make them a viable partner? Is it, what about their box model or the product, you know, within it is exciting to us after having worked with so many partners?
Yeah, so it's really about, do they care about the product experience? Meaning, like, when you open, we talk a lot about opening the box and the box opening experience, because initially there's a perceived value of, and that's usually like triggered by, one, does the box look full? Because depending on what you're doing, like, there's several different kind of categories of types of boxes, but if you're curating different things every month into a box, and the things that you happen to curate, even if they're high value, good things, but they're all tiny, like they're tiny little premium lip glosses or something, and they're in this big box, that perceived value is instantly low. So a partner who can understand all of the different factors, like tangible value, perceived value, all of that go into the box and really care about that matters to me, and I know they'll be a good partner moving forward.
More void fill.
And a partner who is willing to let the customer lead in terms of how the product should develop.
Yeah.
So our best partners are the ones who, and Mariah, you know this because you lead a lot of these efforts, they're the partners who offer a method for customers to provide their input and feedback on the box. So every month for our best and favorite clients, we do a survey, and we get input on the box as a whole, individual items in the box, and we'll never know if we're doing a good job or not unless we get that firsthand feedback. Otherwise, it's always subjective from the people who are creating it. And that is the source of truth for what people are thinking and what decisions we should make to modify the product in the future.
Yeah, because oftentimes the people procuring the products, designing the inserts, mocking up the website, they might not even be in the target audience that we're trying to sell the box to. So you have to kind of remove your own confirmation bias that this is going to be a good thing, and ask people who you're trying to sell it to in the first place, and not people Find a focus group, or find utilize your existing customer base to hone in on what really matters to them. It'll save you money and make you money in the long run, right?
Exactly right.
I was thinking of a few examples of that, but I mean, ultimately it's incredibly hard if you aren't the target audience to understand certain products that people want. I always think of Lunarly. It's one of the boxes that we do, and I was wise enough to know it doesn't matter if I understand it or not, if the data is supporting it and we are talking to people that are interested in it, shut the hell up and sell the thing, right? I guess people can check it out at lunarly.com, but it's based on moon cycles and a lot of other just really interesting things. But
it's a self-care box powered by the new moon.
Yeah.
And it alternates the hero product between a plant and a candle.
Yeah.
But that box, if I could talk about it for just a second, because that box is one that I'm really proud of in terms of product development. We average 4.5 out of 5 stars on that box when we get feedback in our surveys, which is pretty impressive. That's on Amazon, if you see a 4.5 star product, you're like, oh, that's the best one. That's about as good as it can get. So we're doing that month in and month out on this box, and honestly, fulfilling plants every 2 months is not an easy task. Shipping plants every
putting my sales hat on and hearing you speak about the product, some of the things that we, in the initial phone call, which we try to weed out, the bad stuff from the good, to give it to our product team. The first thing when you talked about goals, we talk about the whole pirate marketing type stuff, which we say, what's the goal of this box? And the acronym is AARRR, which is it acquisition, or do you want to activate somebody to do something? Is it you just want to retain a current client base? Do you want to use this as a method to get refers from it, from your receiver to others? And then, or do you just want to make revenue, money, right? Acquisition, activation, retention, referral, revenue. And really, truly, the fewer of those 5 things that you focus on, the better you will be at those.
Yes,
and when you see people try to accomplish all 5, you're like, this means nothing to anybody. Whereas, people are like, we just want to acquire users so we can look at the data, right? That is a great reason, right? And then that guides a lot of the numbers and the metrics. The other thing, I totally agree with you on the whole, it has to appear full. But as we're filtering people in and out, we say feel, taste, wow. Are you covering your bases? Can people open it up and play and feel different materials? Not necessarily can they taste it, but can they smell or taste it?
Is it appealing to one of the senses?
Yep. And then wow is in wow, I didn't know this existed, or wow, that's a lot of a certain product. And so I do feel if you have your why, right? If you know the goals of the AARRR, if you can check the boxes of being full and void fill, and then what was the last one I was going to add to it? The anatomy of the box. So we talk a lot about everybody wants to know, what do I put in my box? Like, that's not the question you should be asking. The question you should be asking is, like, what is the category of the product, right? So
Right.
don't think like, I don't know, like cherry Kool-Aid sample. Like, no, you're talking about like a sample, right?
Right.
Or you're talking about a beverage, or maybe it's like a flavor that's new and you're introducing it. And so simply by categorizing the product offering in the box, and so I think that in product development and doing so many things, like these things are clicking, they're firing off in your brain without ever saying or talking to anybody, right? And so when I hear you say it, I'm like, oh, we have a process for that we have to filter people through, right?
Right.
And people just really don't understand, when we presented that box the other day for people, it felt really basic to me, right?
Sure.
But then you hear them on the other line, they're like, oh my gosh, this is well thought through. Like, and you're like, oh, we've just done so many of them. Like, these are in there to manage the weight distribution. So we don't care what these two products are. They just have to be under this weight. So, like, don't worry what they are. And this product is here because it actually fits with this product. And people are like, but I want this one thing. And you're like, well, we could do that, but it's going to add $4 to shipping. And they're like, oh, how do we fix that? And you're like, no, that's what we're doing for you right now.
Yeah. And that kind of a box, that like curated box where you're constantly finding new things, is one of the more complicated ones.
Yeah.
Like ways to approach creating a box product. And when I say product, I mean the box as a whole, multiple items kitted and sold as one.
Right.
And there's different ways to like simplify that. Like on the most simple level, like a subscription box could just be replenishment, which means you have an existing product or set of products and you're going to send it to them every month. Maybe they get an extra freebie item or an extra sample or something, but that one's easy, right? You're not creating something new every month. You're just replenishing every month. The next, like, I guess, easiest one would be like a series instead of, so when we call it a series at Bulu, and what that means is that the subscription boxes and the themes have a defined end. And it could be an end where then it repeats. So you develop 12 different box themes, let's say, and it's delivered for a year. And at the end of the year, you just repeat the themes, right? And it's the same. It's like the same content. So that could be somewhat replenishable. It could be that you've just reached the end, whatever it may be. Then you're limiting how much time you're investing in coming up with new product every single month. And then most of our clients kind of fall into that curated option, which means we're identifying products that probably already exist, and we're curating them in a thoughtful way, generally around a theme each month. And we're putting that together with things like the box anatomy in mind, like we need one self-care item, we need one healthy snack, whatever it might be, and we're putting those into a box. And then the really complicated ones are you're manufacturing and creating an actual product every single month.
Shark bobbleheads.
Yes. And then there's some that are just kind of a mixture of both. So it really, I mean, when we say on this show, like, subscription box is relentless, that's why. You're creating a product every single month.
The amount of times that we have those conversations with people of like, did you start this to manage it? Like, a lot of companies, especially bigger ones, like, they just think as far as to like, how do we get this thing built and launch it? And then it's like already 2 weeks away from the next one, and you can just feel the like, oh shit moment hit them. I got a call today of somebody that's like, I need 100,000 like packed now, and then I got 1 million like in a couple months, and it's really hard to just be like, you're fucked. But you're like, why did you let it get to this point, right? And like, that's launching a subscription is not the finish line. That's like your race bib entry, and people are like, I got 26 miles after this, and you're like, oh no, this is like 100-miler. Like, you're just running now. And I think our team and our experience is like, we don't know any better. You know, and when you talk to like other fulfillment and subscription or companies related, they're like, oh no, it's just really hard, that's why we don't do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to repeat that to our team. But it's just hard. Oh, okay. What is the, as you look back on all the things that you've created, even in your career previous to Bulu, what's been your favorite product that you ever created?
Well,
maybe campaign, or maybe like, you know, whatever it is, but you've had a lot of start from scratch.
Can I mention more than one?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, good. I mean, literally has a soft spot in my heart for sure. Our team works really closely on that one in developing the product. And like I said, we get a lot of customer feedback on that one, so I love that we're constantly hearing from our customers.
That one has to get
using
a creepy, like, really tight, it must be the crystals.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably because the team we work with is like similar attitudes, similar, like there's a lot of like, if you hang out with their team, you're like, oh, these are like Bulu type people.
Yeah, so that one's really great. Working on any of the Disney programs, but in particular the Princess program was really, really great.
Yeah.
Mostly because that's an idea that kind of originated with the Bulu team, and then bippity boppity boo, we kind of ended up executing it for Disney. And the idea there was that we provide dresses to little kids, girls or boys, who want to pretend to be a princess and encourage that kind of imaginative play. And it was a really, really, really fun bringing that to life. So Disney. And then the last one that I think was super fun was the Shark Week 35th anniversary box.
Yeah.
And that was just like a really fun fandom box where I felt like we got to flex a lot of creative muscle and do a lot of different fun things.
Yeah.
And we did a bit of curating and a bit of manufacturing, kind of all over the board. Fun.
The Disney princess, I can't remember if I was armed with that idea when we talked to them or if it was off the cuff. Do you remember where that?
You were armed with that idea. It was a concept we had been exploring at Bulu Box, potentially executing ourselves. And Paul, being the great networker you are, you had a conversation with the teams at Disney, and they said, well, how about you work with us and we create it? And we said, great, that's what we do a lot of the times, and that's what we actually prefer to do, versus we were kind of in this gray area of launching some of our boxes that we own ourselves versus launching them for other people, and Disney wanted to launch it themselves. It worked out great.
I'm going back in my head on this phone call, and I just remember being put on the spot by them to like pitch. It was like, you have us pitch, and I was like, whoa. And I'm trying to remember like how that happened. Yeah.
No worries, Walt and Bob Iger are just listening. Pitch.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's the worst. That's the worst when people do that, and then they're like, you know, whatever you say is wrong. I will not name one individual, but they were like, tell me, you know, go, you is a big brand. They're like, go, you have whatever. And I was like, well, we got to get our team. And they're like, no, you should know this by now if you're calling me. And then, like, I knew it would be I knew I was getting teed up. And then it was like, okay, now you need to tell me, like, why this exists. And I was like, I fucking nailed that, you know. And the voice on the other line just goes, wrong.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you why you're wrong. And then it was like some bullshit, like, you know, our company was founded on this thing, and I was like, well, how am I supposed to be your 200-year existence? Like, you're not still about that thing.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
that was good. I think that's good for people, though, because, like, you get, you know, like, you know when you're being teed up, like, that person has no intention of being like, great idea. You're just like, okie dokie, I'll walk right into this one.
That's why one of our core values is fire the asshole.
Yes, exactly, exactly, which we might have done in that scenario. Go ahead. No, we dead air. What questions do you have for us?
About product?
Yeah.
What products, what boxes did you guys like creating the most? I named 3 of the pretty exciting ones.
I don't know if I liked this or if I hated it, but I found our work on the Crayola CIY program, which was an entirely kind of innovation venture from Crayola, just like a let's see if this is something we are interested in doing, and we did it for a few months and it ended up not working out. But I think that's one of the beauties of working with us, is we'll help you figure out if it is a good thing or not.
Yep.
And that was one of our first ventures into doing activity boxes,
Yes.
where we're not just curating products that you decide how to use, we're telling you how you have to use them,
Yes.
because we're giving you
Instruction booklets.
yes,
and
videos on like how to marble paint this clock and then assemble the clock hands and like hang it up in your house. And we also had to Vivian and the team working on that did just like an insane job putting
Yes.
these crafts together. But it was that was interesting because we had seen a lot of different types of boxes. We had done big one-offs with big brands like the Shark Week box. We had done a lot of kind of discovery style boxes where like you get samples of something like
Yes.
vitamins and supplements or snacks, and we had done the more like hyper-focused target market curation, which is what I think like a Lunarly program is. It's going after a really specific audience, and that was something that I think was a couple of years ago now, but it was super fun just to do something a little bit different in our own space. But even that for us was a little bit of like, oh gosh, this is hard.
Yes, and that one makes me think, so we did the Crayola one, which was for young adults, and then we're also working on a science experiment kit for kids.
Yes.
And that one might have been one of the most challenging ones, because we were sourcing things like sodium alginate and just these crazy materials so that we could like
crossing international borders with suitcases full of powder.
Literally.
Getting pulled into
Yeah.
customs.
And then just that entire process, what was challenging about that is all of the steps we had to go through to test the experiments, make sure they work, make sure we had the exact right weights of, and ounces
Yeah.
for each sodium alginate or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then we had to get all of that through safety testing
Yeah.
for kids.
Yeah.
And that process takes so long that you're sourcing months and
Yeah.
months out, which is a challenge when it comes to projections. How much inventory should we buy? Where do we think we're going to be selling in 6 months? And that's a challenge because that's a cash outlay for our partners that is hard to predict that far in advance, especially when it's a brand new subscription box. So that was a really challenging one. It was really fun.
That one stinks.
Literally because of the stuff we were sourcing.
Yeah, yeah.
Dad joke.
Yes.
Mom, yeah. Mine?
What else, guys?
Oh, you guys want to know mine? Okay, I'll tell you mine. Cool.
Oh yeah, Paul, you haven't answered. What's your
You're
favorite
still here?
Yeah, yeah, right.
What's your name again?
So the Dick. It's Dick. Probably the one that I liked the most, it just never came to fruition, but it was the game company.
Mm.
Right? The game company.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, because I've been doing a lot of like pulling together like case studies and stuff for presentations, and I go to that deck and I'm like, this is the most well thought out, effective, and just the fact that like we were having to sign off on documents to see stuff like so early compared to
Yes.
like that was cool. Like we were like, there's this massive game following for something.
Yes.
And
For our listeners, if it sounds like we're being cryptic, we can't talk about it, but we had a really fun opportunity with a game
and
company.
we got paid and it got really far, and it just
We had a concept
COVID
ready to
kinda
go.
screwed up a lot of stuff, but and it wasn't just a box, it was like a website and gameplay within the box, and it was digital and physical, and man, we really like flexed our muscle on that one. And just when you see, I mean, the fact that they trusted us with like their creative to like build out stuff, like, oh my god damn, that was good shit,
It was.
and it's such a specific
It is.
thing that like
can
it
do
doesn't really work for other companies, right? But I would also say, the one that we're working on right now, like we literally, like, you know, presented yesterday, I really like that because it technically checks all the boxes that we would ever want.
Yes.
So if somebody walked in the door and said, like, I want to do a subscription box, tell me exactly what to do, between our input and what they had already, that's happening. So I'm just like, I literally don't know what to say to them in the, you know, conversation and pitch and whatever, because I'm like, ta-da, you know, like here it is. So I'm really excited about that one, like way more excited than I've been in a long time, and I definitely feel like a dope when I'm talking to their teams. I'm like, I'm so excited about this, you guys, like, you don't understand. And I'm like, by now it just sounds like a lie, you know. And then I get off the phone and we're talking to that one giant online brand with like a personality, and I'm like, you know, whatever. Like,
it's getting so cryptic.
Yeah,
We're like,
yeah.
that one thing and the one thing that we can't
Yeah,
say.
and trust me, I'm the first person to just out with who it is, but these are definitely ones, like, you know,
we want to
be,
respect.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can tell people about it.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
thing that I think I love about the setup of that game project that didn't happen is it ties in a little bit to what we talked about with in a previous episode, that boxes do really well when they're part of a bigger something.
Yes.
Right, we're going to talk about this live stream. It will be February 11th with Jenna O'Connor from GNC, who has been one of our partners for many years.
Mm-hmm.
But they have, at GNC, they have the Pro Box, which is part of the Pro membership program, and GNC has this insane loyalty program, and kind of, I think, I'm going to butcher the name, My GNC, some combination of those words in some order, sorry Nicole, is that, you know, that whole concept, you know, they really honed in on what part of that pirate funnel that they wanted to do, and that box is just like a bullseye on the target every time.
Yes.
On that, and I think that's what's really compelling about some boxes, especially if you're a brand that already has a presence. You're not launching a brand with the box. Is to tie it into something that your customers are already doing.
Yeah, that's definitely the
in store or online.
But I'm like, it's just a tool, you know, like it maybe a better way of saying it is like, you know, the metrics of CAC to LTV payback ratio can kind of only tap out so much depending on like your market and the product, and a lot of times that's not going to meet what people want. So by, you know, building it into a membership program or something else, it becomes a really powerful tool instead of the foundation. And don't get me wrong, I think it can be the foundation to a certain point, but, you know, at some point you're probably going to want, you know, benefits and higher salaries and more people, and so you have to like add on to that, or, you know.
But I think that's also a way to get the sell if you're working, you know, inside a marketing or innovation team within a larger company, is bundle that subscription box program into somebody else's budget. Which what we were just talking about was what they were doing. Yeah, so exactly.
They're like, we realize this is a marketing effort, so, and you're like, oh, thank you. Yes, it is. It's a fancy direct mail piece.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Yes. Where do we go? Okay, let's keep going.
We're kind of at time. I don't know when you guys got to roll.
We should probably roll pretty soon.
Very soon.
I have so many more questions to ask.
I think we got through the key ones that we wanted to talk about.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I don't know if it has to do with here. I don't know. It's just like this thought maybe that's been going around in my mind, and you know, we are at an interesting time where the inbound work is a lot of like, now, you know, kind of coming to the tail end of COVID, people are like, we want to innovate, and we're like, we're not sure, like, you're gonna have to pay for that now because we're really focused on subscription fulfillment. But also, like, there's a ton of value add where when people do just have us do fulfillment, there's like a lot of additional things that we're able to like almost fix or tinker with or help with. But I've definitely found that I don't know if the pandemic has something to do with it, but there's been a lot of people saying like, oh, you know, we can do that thing. Like, there's a lot more like, oh, we can handle that or whatever. And what I've noticed with subscription boxes, or I think it has to do, maybe I'm just tossing out this thought, it'll probably get cut from the show, who cares?
Okay.
I'm just tossing this thought out because I have you two here. Maybe live streamers are curious, but I think it has to do with kitting and subscription, for sure if you do them both together. But the nuance of a kit or a subscription is just enough to trick you into thinking, if you do e-commerce, that you can do this thing. But then when you get into it, you realize this is not what I thought it was, right? And it's kind of like any asshole can pop up a lemonade kid. Any asshole kid can like pop up a lemonade stand, but does that mean they can franchise it out?
That's exactly right.
And this has been like, I don't know, it's almost like something I got to get off my chest where like it hit me, you know, who knows the millionth subscription box call that I've had where this person was like, oh, we'll just get this from China and do, like, we do that all the time. And you're like, no, that won't work. And they're like, well, no, I do it all the time. I'm like, but yeah, but the time frame that you just said, that literally will not work, you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, I think you're wrong. And like, what do you do? And you're like, I know I'm right. Like, I know, you know, like, or here's the classic one. Oh, don't worry, we won't run out of that thing. I'm like, I hear what you're saying, and this has been really massive brands. Like, I hear what you're saying in the history of your company, you've never run out of this specific item. But I'm telling you, the numbers are telling us now, if you don't order it last month, it's not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. And that nuance, which I'm always super proud that big subscription box CEO, one of the top 1, 2, or 3, contacted us, and they said it to us. They said, the person said, I really don't think people understand how difficult and the nuance with subscription box. And I think that's when it clicked. And then after I've had a bunch of phone calls since then, I'm like, that's what it is. That's why we exist.
Yeah.
Because people are tricked. And arguably that happened to us in the beginning when we launched Bulu.
Sure.
We had no idea what we were getting into.
If you haven't worked in subscription before, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
Because not only are you making sure your current month's box is getting out the door successfully, that you're billing people the way they're supposed to be billed properly, that you're tending to their customer service questions, that the website is all functioning as it should, but then you're thinking about next month and like, okay, did next month's products arrive at the warehouse so they can get packed appropriately?
It's like a catalog
and then the month
with all the
beyond
products
that,
being shipped.
Right, you're
like every month.
Did we finalize the choice for the products in month 3, and have they been purchased? And then in month 4, where have we finalized what that concept is? And then how many should we purchase, because what is our current growth rate? Oh shit, change the number because it just grew or whatever it is. And it's a lot.
And that's without layering any customization or personalization in your box. Like, if subscribers have a choice between 2 different flavors or sizes or colors of things or types of products, right? Then you have to deal with all of those variables.
20 different versions every month.
I mean, you don't have a Gantt chart, you have a Jackson Pollock painting. It's just like everything's completely wrapped and crosses over. We have this conversation all the time in our meeting, like, wait, what month are we in? Like right now, currently, because we're planning and finalizing July matrices. And
which is why we use Asana. Go to asana.com/Bulu with the offer code.
And every company should work with us.
I'm going to get them to sponsor this.
AJ, just chop up all the Asana plugs into like one clip, and then we'll just go 50-50 on whatever they pay.
We need to start getting some advertising dollars from
just for Asana. You watch, they'll like have somebody that listens and like just like a check will show up.
Who's going to reach out to us is Monday.com. It's like the competitor.
We go back and edit everything, and you're like, I love Monday.com because can you just Control F and search all the Asana language and delete it with that? So,
all right, we should probably wrap up, guys.
We got some boxes to ship.
It's a kit.
Yep. We just launched an email campaign. I'm really curious on how it went.
All right.
Let's get back to that. So,
okay. I'll let you and Mariah wrap it up because I'm not the co-host today.
What is the best part of your job?
Aside from working with my husband?
I'm waiting for the punchline. There's none. Yes.
No, I really do enjoy working
Yeah,
with you.
I enjoy working with him too. He's awesome.
The best part of my job is
Is
that...
that why you work upstairs every day?
Paul and I have been working from home, and he works downstairs, and I work
Yeah,
upstairs.
but in her defense, just the sales team is in a pit. It's going to be fun to look back on the time and laugh at, like we just all got locked in the basement
Yeah.
room.
My favorite thing about my job is that I'm learning something new every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. When I used to work for other people and not myself, I got to where I felt like it was kind of getting stale. Anytime I
Yeah.
ever left a company, I felt like the opportunities for growth were kind of stalling,
Yeah.
and I wasn't learning anymore. And at Bulu, I'm constantly learning,
Yeah.
and I'm constantly impressed with our team and what they're bringing to the table because they're constantly learning too.
Yeah.
When you mentioned that our average tenure is 7 years, it's so fun to look at those individuals and see where
Yeah.
they started and where they are now. You know, like they were interns and now they're like part of our like leadership
Yeah.
and management. So that's the best part is the like growth professionally, personally, and learning every day.
I think it is completely underestimated, and the data will actually support this if you go look it up. Happiness at work is actually how you get the most productive people. And, you know, it is a little bit the blessing and the curse because at Bulu we definitely have a like, I don't know, you want to do it, go get it. And it's like, well, just show me how to do it, you know, and you're like, that's the point, right? But also it leads to things like there's some FedEx competition where it's like 50 grand to the winner or whatever, and I just tossed it out to the group. I'm like, anybody want to do this? You can take a cut of it, and somebody raised their hand, and you're just like, you know, or the new Jake, our new hire, I think is, you know, processing. You can kind of see his wheels turning when we're doing sales, and I'm like, I don't know, you want to do that? And he's like, can I? Like, who does, you know, and I'm like, I don't know, just do it, you know. We just added like a chat bot to the website, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna get in trouble for this shit. And like, it wasn't even a good photo of him or whatever, and that night he's texting me, he's like, dude, I'm like fucking talking to people like right now. And I was like, oh yeah, he goes, this is so weird, I just joined the company. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have thought that part out. So he's like, you know, who does this go to? I'm like, just tell him to go to Marcus. But just like, I'm like, you'll be fine. You know how to handle people or whatever. But like, just those little things, you know, it's like that I think what you mentioned, I think that comes from you a lot. And I think that's also the thing that retains a lot of people, and quite frankly, probably scares the hell out of people to run away of like, what are you guys doing? So, cool. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us on this special episode of Box Talks with Bulu. Mariah, thank you for co-hosting. You're going to do this more often?
Sure. I like to talk. I'll be here.
I like to talk. When my batteries...
Mariah has actually been a robot this entire time.
When my batteries are charged. Okay. Are we let's just do the outro with her here. That'll be interesting.
Okay.
Okay. Mariah, so we just talked to Stephanie Jarrett from Bulu. She's still in the room being awkward about things. So, yeah. Hi. So, what did you think about that? I thought she smelled kind of funny during the episode, but I don't know if you picked up on that. But what are your thoughts?
Stephanie is a person I would go to determine whether something is good enough quality to share with the client. I think she is the source of truth for, is this good enough at Bulu?
Right.
And we have a core value that's first class.
Yep.
And so, I don't know if she knows this, but internally, a lot of times when I'm developing a document, even if I'm just going to share it like with our customer service team, I'm like, would I share this? Would I be proud if I put this in front of like Stephanie to share with the board or share with the client or something like that? And if I'll go back and do it again if not. So she's definitely a barometer of quality on our team.
That is a good tool to steal for everybody of, you know, if you work with Stephanie Jarrett on creative, like she'll look you in the eye and say like, are you proud of this work before she ever looked at it? And if not, it's like go back and, you know, get it to that point. You know, given those situations where it's like, is this thing functional? Good enough.
Sometimes done is better than perfect.
I would also add that I can relate, except for my situation would be like social interactions. she's a great barometer on if things are appropriate or not. So I've benefited from that greatly. I'm surprised I don't have more scarring on my shins from kicks under the table in meetings, but also I need those, right? So I'll forever remember the day when she was like, Paul, that's not nice to laugh at people. So I was like, she's like, people don't like that. I'm like, okay, thank you. Can you keep doing that for me? Because I did not know that. So no, I think overall in general for, our company and the culture and everything, I think, operationally, culturally, creatively, to your point, I mean, she is the backbone of the company. So, super proud to have her, running the team, be married to her best friend, con her onto the show, all of that stuff. So we should probably do like a Q&A with Stephanie, some episode. That'd be a fun, repeatable episode.
I think we should do a few of those. And I will say that in the show notes, we'll put links to some other presentations that Stephanie's done with the Subscription Box Trade Association,
Yep.
and a couple other talks that she's done over the last few years that kind of dive deeper into launching and managing product quality. I
Yep.
think if anyone's interested, whether you're just launching your box for the first time or you're doing this within a larger organization, there's a lot of value, and
Yep.
and learn from our and
There's
good stuff
also, I think, an irregular amount of female entrepreneurs in subscription boxes, which is a good thing. And I do believe that, she might not have the time for everything, but I think she's a good person to reach out to, because, boy, I've seen her in board meetings or dealing with investors or whatever, and presenting, and she tends to dodge that stuff, but, I know that there's people out there that, are probably going through challenges that are exclusive to that segment, female entrepreneurs, and I can feel her cringing because she probably doesn't want to, have this topic surrounding her, but screw it, I think it's for the greater good, so I'm going to throw that.
Is this the first on the books meeting of the Stephanie Jarrett fan club?
No, I think that happens every night at our house. All right, you've got plenty of verbal praise.
That's a lot, guys. It felt awkward sitting over here, but thank you.
Yeah. All right, this has been another episode of Box Talks with awkward outros and intros. I'm Paul Jarrett.
I'm Mariah Nimich.
That was truly out of nowhere.
Why did you just go,
Because it felt right.
Okay.
It felt right in my
Let's roll with it.
We'll do one more. You ready?
Do we need to? Can they just cut it off before that sound?
No, we're gonna leave it in there.
This has been
Yeah,
another
let's leave it. It's good.
This has been another episode of Box Talks. I'm Paul.
I'm Mariah.
This has been another episode of Box Talks with not Stephanie. This has been another episode of Box Talks with Bulu. I'm Paul.
I'm Mariah.
Okay. First take is the keeper.
And we are done.
Yes.
Bye.
We gotta go pick up kids, and we
We
are
have
probably
kids?
we are. I think we're over our time.
We're over our time? Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Grindstone.
Sorry, grandson. Oh, shit. 5:21.
That's why I kept you.
I kind of went on twice.
Bye, live stream.
All right.